we're going to spend a lot of time today talking about the transfer rumor that has everybody fired up. Where is Garnacho going to play in our system? This is the Arsenal Vision Post-Match Podcast. My name is Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Okay, I don't know that we are going to sign Alejandro Garnacho. We are linked. You get linked with everyone, don't you? Chelsea are linked. And to be fair, Chelsea get linked with everyone, but they also then buy everyone. So it's a little bit different. We're probably not going to spend a lot of time talking about that. We'll also probably quickly rubbish some Zubimendi rumors. We'll do a bit of that, maybe the quickest bit on the UEFA Nations League final, whatever that is. But we are also going to do the 2024-2025 player ratings today. And we're going to do them in a different way because when you do things differently than what people are used to, that's when you get all the really positive feedback in my experience. So more on that anon. Yes, some rumors of Zubimendi going to Real Madrid. These are rumors of dubious provenance, but we will address them because it is the transfer window and that's what we do. And if that's what you like, look, you don't want to doom scroll. They call it doom scrolling for a reason. It's not good for your sanity. You don't have to because we've done it for you. What do I mean? We are doing a transfer daily. That means literally every single day. And because today is, it says here, a day, we will have a transfer daily later. Some of them are with me and Clive. Some of them are with me and Tim. Some are with Scott. Some are with Paul. Some are with all different kinds of people. And we will have the newsmakers and deal makers on the transfer daily throughout the summer. But it will give you a way to stay ahead of the news instead of having to doom scroll. We rate them by poop emojis. So, you understand how realistic we think these things are. Sometimes it's silly. Sometimes it's serious. And I think you will love it. And if you want to catch that and all the regular Patreon content, we're going to have some scouting videos. I think this week, I know Clive is gearing up for some exciting scouting videos. Lucien Agume, perhaps, could be one to look at. We've got what you need over at Patreon. So sign up, use code AVP, and you get 50% off the first month. You can listen to 30, or depending on the month, 31 transfer dailies and see what you think. We'd love to have you there, but we're just thrilled to have you here, and we hope you're doing great. And doing great with me now is Clive. Hello, Clive.
Hello.
And Tim. Hello, Tim.
Hello there.
All right. Before we dive into the player ratings, let's just quickly clear the news. Clive, is Zubimendi going to cook for Real Madrid or not?
Who knows? Your life can change in a WhatsApp message. That's one of my mottos I live by. And so far, the WhatsApps I'm receiving are saying, yeah, we're good. Don't worry about it. Stop stressing. I said, I wasn't stressing. I was just asking. He said stressing. So,
yeah.
Well, I like, what, I've got loads of sayings, as you guys know. And I always try to pretend that, they're just players. There's a few I like and a few I don't. I'm starting to really like this one. And so, and I liked him anyway, but seeing him recently, it's made me like him even more. So now I really want him to come and play because I think he's a really interesting player to watch. And so, yeah, any rumour that says anything that he's not going to come and play, I'm just exacerbating it in my own mind. So, but yeah, I think we're doing things nicely with Real Sociedad. Maybe we can, accounting-wise, delaying it according to the people that really know. And all the people that really know have said the same things. And this will happen in July. So, yeah, let's count down the days, right? Because Madrid are doing their thing in the background, no doubt, to try to change his mind. So let's see what happens.
I think some pretty reliable sources have gone pretty big with legal documents being signed and the deal is going to get done and so on and so forth. Let me be clear. The deal is not done until the player is an Arsenal player. I don't know what contracts have been signed. The only contract that matters is the contract to play football for Arsenal. So we just have to accept that until that happens, yeah, the best players in the world are wanted by the biggest clubs in the world, and that makes deals complicated. I am old enough to remember when Xabi Alonso, ironically now manager at Real Madrid, was an Arsenal player until he wasn't. At the last moment, he turned out to be a Liverpool player. So these things can happen. Now, my instinct is that he will still play for Arsenal. I want to be clear about that. But Xabi Alonso is a hero of his. Real Madrid is the biggest club, or one of the two biggest clubs in the country he plays for. And he's making some headlines by playing well for Spain right now. And I have to say, he's a player that I was mixed on, but having watched him for Spain this last week or so, boy, oh boy, you really see the talent come through. I will say that the system he plays in at club level may do him no favors, but for Spain, he is absolutely sensational. There's a bit of Declan Rice in there with the way he drives and the way he breaks lines and the style of play, but no angle bias, he says, as though he knows what angle bias is. Don't worry, I don't.
Explain to me what angle bias is, Elliot. You're going to drop these lines. Go on, explain it to me.
I can explain you what I think it means, and then you can tell me what it actually means, right? I think that when he receives the ball, He is not inclined to receive with his body closed in a certain direction so that half the pitch is available to him, half isn't. He's able to receive off either foot with an open frame so that he can play it out to the left or play it out to the right. And he's not, from what I watch, I don't see a player who specifically favors one side of the pitch versus the other side in the way that he receives the ball and opens himself up to play the next pass. That could be wrong, just so we're clear. I just wanted to drop an angle bias for hashtag street cred, but you tell me.
I don't like phrases like that, if I'm honest with you. But,
they're nonsense. But come on, we all get to drop the occasional weird phrase that we don't understand. That's
when we
part
first
of the fun.
scouted him, sometimes you scout a player at a time when you see somebody fix the problems that we had at that time. And I felt we were a bit slow in our attack, and we were missing opportunities to see runners. And then we see a scouting video of him seeing all the runners off both feet, inside, outside of both feet. Doesn't really matter. The ball, 1 touch, 2 touch, doesn't really matter. And he just fixed a lot. So it was like, oh my gosh, that's a very nice looking football player. Exactly what we need. And I do think his two-footedness is what I find interesting. And I do think we are a bit one-footed in those areas. I mean, Declan Rice is strong on his right foot. Ødegaard's strong on his left foot. Thomas Partey strong on his right foot. Have they got the variation of passes off both feet? And I don't think they do. And I think that's really important.
I don't want to teach you football, Clive, but I'd just say he doesn't have an angle bias,
Yeah, mate. Flipping. We try. I don't like that phrase.
You got to use opaque terminology that doesn't invite people to enjoy the game. That's the whole point, so you can sound superior. No, I'm with you. Look, Tim, I think he's looked brilliant for Spain, who didn't win, by the way, but I think he was really fantastic. And again, I want to be clear because it's important for your opinions of players to evolve. I watch every single Arsenal game, including every preseason game, so I feel I know the players really well. I don't watch every Real Sociedad game. In fact, true fact, I think maybe I've watched 2 ever, right? So it's based on... Yeah, right. So it's based on scouting videos that we did, and we use a good scouting platform, and I think it gives us some access to understanding him, but not the way a Sociedad fan would, or someone who's watched a lot of him play 90-minute games. That's where you really learn the most. So watching him for Spain, I'm learning more about him, and it's important to stay open to the idea that players aren't just what you think they are at first glance. So I like what I see. I see a player who fills a need that we have. I really just like the way he moves into the space where he's needed. He always seems to be in the place that he needs to be to receive the ball. And he makes smart decisions about if he's under pressure, he gives it quickly. He doesn't take the risk. If he's not under pressure, he'll turn and face and progress the ball or find a way to drive into the space. So just a very thoughtful, intelligent player. I actually see, and I know this, you have to be careful when you compare to players like this because it makes it sound like you're saying they're the same level of the player. But I see a little Busquets in the way he plays. And, Busquets is one of the greats to ever do it. So you want to be careful with those comparisons. So, I don't know, did you watch him for Spain a bit? Are you getting excited about this move? And also, are you any bit concerned about the Real Madrid link?
Let me address the easiest one first. I did not watch Spain v Portugal. I actually didn't know the game was happening till this morning when it had already happened.
Proper way to deal with the UEFA Nations League.
In terms of Zubimendi, I think that no matter what your personal opinion of the signing is or whatever, it's clear this is a very central brick in our summer transfer business, and it's a deal that by the sounds of it we put a lot of the groundwork in for like a year ago.
Yeah, and
so to lose that would be a significant problem, however you rate the player, because a deal it looks like we've had done for nearly a year it goes down the toilet, and that would be really, really bad, particularly at the price we're doing it and everything, and everyone will know we're desperate and blah blah blah. And by the way, we've got an issue where we might need 2 in that position anyway, because we still don't know what's happening with like Thomas Partey's contract or anything like that, so that it would be a significant issue. And with the kind of Real Madrid thing, the fact that it's Real Madrid both gives me comfort and fear at the same time, because it gives me comfort in that I kind of know how their propaganda machine works.
Yeah.
And, they'll stoke the fires and all of that, and they've got like a little digital army that's willing to help them do that and all of that. But at the same time, it might not actually have any substance to it. At the same time, it's Real Madrid and it might have some substance to it. And, I think it's very likely they're trying to do something, because I don't think it's a coincidence all this comes out while he's with Spain and while journalists can ask him questions and kind of corner him a little bit, and he's not really able to say anything at the moment, because if it's not done, he can't just say, oh yeah, I'm going to Arsenal, leave me alone, because he can't do that out of respect to Real Sociedad. And, you know, the whole Xabi Alonso thing, I mean, everyone's known Xabi Alonso's going to be Real Madrid's manager this summer for a year at least. But, you know, he's kind of surrounded by Real Madrid players at the moment, and I don't doubt for a second that they're kind of pouring honey in his ear and all of that. But at the same time, a lot of the reporting from the uber top tier kind of journalists around Arsenal is basically that this is done. And I recognise your point that it's not done till it's done. But at the same time, I think it would have to be a bit more than a U-turn. I think this would be several donuts in the kind of soil. It doesn't mean it's impossible, but I still tend to think it will probably happen. And this is just Real Madrid trying to do what Real Madrid do.
Yeah, I mean, worth pointing out that Jose Felix Diaz, anyway, who is one of the people reporting this, is renowned for such scoops as Declan Rice is going to Bayern Munich. That's a good one. And Alphonso Davies is going to Real Madrid. Another Real Madrid link there. So, you know, you always have to take this stuff with a grain of salt. Now, I will say Tom Canton, who I like very much and who I don't think is sensationalizing things, has also said that there's real interest there. Of course there's interest. Liverpool were interested. I mean, to your point, yeah, Xabi Alonso, we knew he was going to Madrid for a while, but his focus was Bayer Leverkusen. Now his focus is on Madrid, and he's looking at who do I need, and this is a player that he's probably suddenly said to, you know, the hierarchy at Real Madrid, let's see what we can do here. I think it'll happen. I think Arsenal will get their man. That's my instinct.
I think also, just to talk a little bit more about the actual player, is clearly this is an important part of Arsenal evolving as well, because like Partey and Jorginho, very, very similar players, and that's kind of who we've had the base of our midfield for the last few years. This is going to be something and someone quite different. And so clearly it's part of the evolution of how Arteta wants to play. And that also makes it an incredibly important signing, regardless of your opinion on the player.
It would be just like me to finally see the player and get excited about him, only for him to go to Real Madrid after I moaned and whined about him a little bit early and then watched him a bit more, came around to what makes him special, and then he goes. So I don't know. I don't think there's much else to say on this. We want the player. That much is clear. I think we're going to get the player. A little bit of last-minute nerves around the Madrid interest. You know, your mileage may vary on how much to get worried about that, but we just have to get it over the line. And unfortunately, I think we're going to have to wait till July to know for sure. So we'll see. Not much else out there that I want to address. I know we were linked, I think, spuriously with Alejandro Garnacho, and that'll come up on the Transfer Daily. I don't think we need to get into it big now. We have a new scout coming in from Juve who has some pretty good finds in his time. So that's one that we covered on the Transfer Daily yesterday. But other than that, it is relatively quiet. We've done the Sesko versus Gyökeres versus Watkins versus all those players thing to death at this point. And we're going to have to do it again, is my guess. Rodrigo, a player we like a lot, Nico Williams. So I'll just ask you this, Clive. Anything, since Tim didn't watch, I know you did because it's football. Ball was round, the grass was green, you were watching. Anything stand out to you from the Portugal-Spain final?
Yeah, it was a good game, wasn't it? I didn't see the start of it. I came in a bit late, and I sort of missed the Spain dominance. When I came in, it felt very even, just after half-time. Obviously, see the goals, and I thought Portugal's confidence and pressing really sort of impressed me second half. I thought, come on, Spain, sort yourselves out. But then, like anything, there's a few players that have been absolutely foot perfect for all season, and they started to sort of fatigue a little bit. And then they went to the bench, and I thought the substitutions didn't make them stronger. Spain, I'm talking about here. Yeah. And I thought the substitutions for Portugal, particularly Rafa Leão, made them stronger. Gave them a purpose, gave them directness, and gave them confidence that they could hurt them. They got their second goal by that new guy, Ronaldo. He got a second goal, and basically, I thought they just about deserved it. You know, and when you see Morata walking up for the penalty, you go, "Oh, this don't look right." Right? This doesn't look great, and he missed it, and they tucked it away. I thought they just about deserved it. Hey, you know what? There is a time when you watch England game versus Andorra, and you think, "Oh my God, please stop with this football thing. It's just too much. Can we just stop?" I wanted to pack the players' bags and get them a holiday myself. I felt sorry for them as they're trundling around that pitch. Then you see like a proper game when it's like Spain, France, and obviously this final as well, and you think, "Nah, football, mate. It's a great sport, and it's just about protecting these players really, so they can produce this more often." To see Nuno Mendes charging into the box late in games after he's just been in the Champions League final and he's in extra time and he's still going, that's just great. It won't last forever unless we protect them. Do you know what I mean? It won't last. It's about who it is. It just won't last because human body can't do it. So I have this worry. You know what I'm like. I have this worry about player welfare that I seem to talk to myself about, But no one cares, right? Because another competition's about to start in a little while, and then they'll be back, and then we're into pre-season, then we'll be off. Arsenal people will be off to Asia in about 3-4 weeks' time, and we go again, and we're doing pre-season, and we'll be watching the training videos. Well, I will be, and that's it. We're on this cycle now, and we can't get off, right? It's great, but it's a shame also.
I definitely think that two things that struck me about the game. One is just seeing the clubs that are thriving, forming the backbone of the nations that are thriving. Vitinha and João Neves, right at the heart of midfield for Portugal, having just won the Champions League for
PSG. João Neves played right back in this game, which I thought was strange.
Yeah.
Right? So,
very weird.
And but it's nice to see these players play for their countries because they give you a different thing. Like, obviously, you've seen Zubimendi and different players around him. And Nico Williams, the same, with different players around him until he ran out of juice, until they brought on, I think, Semenyo. Who's the guy who plays for Wolves, the right back? I can't remember his name now. The right back for Wolves. Nah, that's not him. And they brought him on and he shut him down. And it was.
Oh, sorry. I thought you meant who they brought on for Nico Williams.
No. Sorry, the right back for Portugal that came on for João Neves at half-time. Semedo, thank you, Tim.
Yeah, because it was Alex Baena who came on for Nico Williams.
Yeah. Nico Williams, he just ran out of puff and had to come off. So, it's nice to see players in an environment with like-minded players that can look after the ball, that make the right movements, and they can see someone's quality. So when you're looking at a player, scouting them, great to see what they do. Then you have to close your eyes and imagine what they would do in our team. Would they have the brains that allow them to receive the ball when they move? And I think Zubimendi will definitely give us a bit of that. I think we need more intelligence and top end of our pitch, full stop. So, really enjoyable game. But enough football. I want to get involved with the Lions rugby, and I'm watching the French Open tennis and Tour de France and other things to keep our minds fresh. So when the football comes back, we'll be good.
Well, that's the thing. I mean, you watch these players playing for their nation at the end of a very long season where many of them have gone all the way to the Champions League final, all the way to the bitter end, have played 60 games this season, and then you find people who haven't been watching their club being like, oh, that guy stinks. João Neves, I mean, he was subbed off after 46 minutes of playing right back at the end of a busy season. Gee, thanks, coach. You know what I mean? Like, thanks, man. Appreciate it. But if that was your only viewing of him, you'd be like, oh, this guy stinks. Well, obviously he doesn't stink. He's one of the great young midfield talents in the world. So you have to be a little careful about how much you analyze from a game at the end of a very long season. Lamine Yamal, I don't think he was sparkling and sensational in this game. That's a 17-year-old who's played 60 times this season or whatever it is. Yeah. So that was interesting. Nuno Mendes, that's a player that jumps out to me. Fantastic player. I think the thing that's going to happen in this game, a lot of people watched both Nico Williams and Rafa Leao when he came on and thought that those players were impressive, and we're looking for a winger. And so those are names that I think people are going to be talking about the next few weeks. Leao might be on the move, and Nico Williams might be as well. So two players we might even be talking about on this pod in the future. But I think we could probably leave it there and shift gears to the player ratings. And the way I think we should do this is just, there's 21 players plus Mikel Arteta that we're going to rate today. If we each take a minute to give our rating, that's 60 minutes. And then you got your 80-minute podcast and we're golden. And I don't think we'll go over. That's not my instinct. I think we'll probably maybe even go under. If I hear any challenge to this podcast, is that we're too concise, arguably too succinct in our responses and our contributions. So, and I apologize for that. We will try to expand, work on our verbosity in the future. But for now, we're going to keep it tight, a tight 60. That's how we like to do it here at the ArsenalVision Podcast. All right, are you guys ready for this? I'm just going to go down the list from back to front. So there's no order of operations here in terms of who's important or who isn't, or what's the more interesting conversation. We're just going to go back to front, and we're going to do stock rising, stock falling, or stock hold. Okay? That's what we've gone with: rising, falling, hold. And if you are a stockbroker saying you want to get in touch and explain how we could have used the correct lexicon, we'd love to hear from you, of course. And we'd love your stock trading tips as well. Okay. Tim? David Raya.
Yeah, that's a clean and clear stock rising. Played really, really well this season, in the conversation for player of the season. Probably if you take his last 18 months, I think you've got like a very consistent high level there. But obviously I think he did it pretty much the whole season this year, maybe a little tail off at the end. Albeit I think that tail off was more in games that didn't really matter. Like against PSG, when it mattered, he saved a penalty. So I think there was a little bit of that going on. But obviously he became even more important to us because our backup goalkeepers were Neto and two children. So he became even more important to us, and I think he's quite a unique player. I in my column last week, I described him as like the reverse Havertz, in terms of like he's an outlet for us. When we need an outlet up top, Havertz is that guy. But when our defenders are getting squeezed, when they're getting pressed, when there's no way out, they go to Raya, and he's like that 11th outfield player. So as well as actually being quite good at the goalkeeping and keeping the ball out of the goal and catching the ball and all of that, like his distribution, it's not just his distribution, it really is like he's like an 11th outfield player. I think he's one of the clearest stock risings in the squad. Easy start.
Okay, what about you, Clive?
What Tim said, tactically the most important player, along with Havertz, in the team. You know, because they allow us to manage moments of adversity. So, yep, easy.
Yeah, I'm almost inclined to say stock hold because I think he was excellent the season before, but he got off to a rocky start after his arrival. Once it was clear that the job was his, then I think he really blossomed, and I think he just went from strength to strength this season. So it's a soft stock rising for me, but I think another reason it's a stock rising is simply this is a guy who had no ability to be taken out of the firing line, no ability to rest, no ability to get that mental clearing that you need sometimes, you know, that ability to just clear your mind, get away from the football and refresh. So for him, it was a grueling season, and I think he stood up to the challenge. So clear stock rising for me. Clive, Jurrien Timber.
Oh, stock rising again. I think, well, we were fortunate enough to see him in LA when people were injured, and he took a centre-half role, and we're thinking he looks quite good there. He just looked good, you know, looking after a couple of kids, including Miles Lewis-Skelly. That turned out to be not such kids anymore in about 6 months' time. But he from the summer, absolutely brilliant. And okay, we've finished second 3 years in a row, but I just wish that his first season he could have played more than 2 games for us in our first season. Just 15 would have been enough maybe to find those 2 extra points, because he's too good. You know, and the only reason that he dipped towards the end of the season, because he had an injury, and that's been validated by the operation that he had. He was nursed for those Champions League games. And, so I think he's defensively, until he got hurt, he was beyond reproach, you know, particularly in one-on-ones, full of energy, full of bounce, full of go forward. I really like him. And by the way, I don't mind him left back. I know it's not an issue for us anymore, but at the start of the season, I think in our strongest team would have had Jurrien Timber at left back and Ben White at right back if everyone was fit, you know. But now that's changed, obviously. So now we're going to see how we're going to use those fullbacks next season. But yep, clear stock rising for me.
Tim?
Yep, another very clear stock rising for all the reasons that Clive said. I think that thought about left back is interesting. Like, with better health in our defence, maybe he could have done that Tomiyasu thing where it's like, we're playing Salah, we need a defensive left back kind of thing. But ultimately, I'll just leave it at this. Like, Ben White was out of the team for most of the season in the real sense. Like, he was out for 4 months and then took him a little while to come back. One of the most important players in our team in the last 3 or 4 years. And not that we didn't notice, but it wasn't an issue because of Timber. 2 seasons ago, White, we overloaded White because Timber was injured. This season we've overloaded Timber because White is injured. That means, because the law of averages is actually a thing that exists in the world, next season they're both going to be healthy and we're going to be able to rotate them and we're going to win the treble.
Yeah. Only possible answer. Yeah. Stock rising for Timber. I mean, player of the season candidate after having an ACL injury, keep him out all last season. And he comes into that group of a few players that you say, if he hadn't stayed fit, what would this season look like? And it could have looked a damn sight worse. So yeah, for me, clear stock rising. And I mean, that leads us to Ben White. So I'll start with Benjamin White and I'm going to give him a stock falling. And sometimes you get a stock falling because of the way you played, and sometimes you get a stock falling because of circumstance. And I want to be clear that this is stock falling for circumstance, because Ben White moves from one of those players that felt like a foundational element of who we are and what we do to a player now who goes into next season having to establish what his role is for this team and fight for his place. Now, that's how great teams get great, with talented players battling for their position. Ben White saying, right back's not yours, Jurrien, it's mine, and he comes and tries to take it. Right? And so Ben White comes out of this season as a stock falling due to the fact that he was never fit. When he did play, he was playing clearly unfit, which I don't think is good for the way people analyze players at all. But I think Ben White has an interesting role to play in this squad, because I do think that going forward, he can be a bit more effective than Timber at times, overlapping on the right, and his understanding with Ødegaard and Saka. So it'll be interesting to see what Ben White's role is moving forward. I think he can certainly play center back for us. He can play right back. I don't see him switching to left back, and maybe Timber will play there next season, but it's a stock falling from a paramount position in the squad to a position now where he will go into next season fighting for a place. And as I said, I think that can only be good for us long-term. Clive?
Yeah, and him and Timber are different, and we just have to accept the differences. You know, when people judge Ben White, they tend to judge him when he's doing those straight line runs and overlapping people. He's also a very calm defender in possession when he's near his own goal. You know, when he played centre half against Liverpool, I thought he was excellent. It reminded me that he can do that job with his eyes shut. So we have a very good player, and other clubs would really want to see. He sort of said at the end of the season he's going to train every day over the summer to get himself back to the levels that we need him to be. And I can confirm, I know of a family friend that saw him training near his home, and he was training hard. And so you just love that, didn't you? And that's what it's about, the environment. You want people to push each other. You want people to want to play and want to get better. And he sacrificed himself, I think. Without a doubt. He's had that knee bandage on for ages until finally we sat him down. And then Timber sacrificed himself, as Tim said earlier. And so I think I really like this player. It's going to be a big year for him. So let's just check this out, right? Because while we're picking 11s and wondering who's going to play and moving to left back, mate, this is going to be a big year for him, England-wise. Because come them September internationals, he's going to be in that squad. And the country's going to be looking at him, the person that turned England down. And so there's these level of rotation, these wide areas, consistently, particularly around the international periods. Timber's going to play for his country as well. So yeah, we're lucky we got them both, and they can share the moments, particularly early in the season. And the team will select itself in winning time, and we can all work it out by then.
Stock falling then?
Oh, stock right? No, stock falling. I'd say stock hold.
Okay.
I think, although he's had a tough time performance-wise, we all know he's not fit. And he potentially was rushed back. Right? So I would say stock hold. But if someone wants to pin me to a stock falling, it wouldn't bother me. You know, I don't care about the ratings that much. It's a conversation I like.
And Tim, this is really the issue, right? There's players whose stock moves because of something they did, and then there are players whose stock moves because of something someone else did. Mm-hmm. And this was a season where an unfit Ben White saw Jurrien Timber really play well. That really, Clive, I'll let you back in here quickly because I can tell that you have to weigh in on that. But that is really a movement in our squad hierarchy. You know,
you see, if I'm the manager, right, and I know I brought you back early, I know you're not fit, and you've still gone out there and give me 6.5, 7 out of 10 max, while people were running past him that we know would never run past him. To the manager, he's a 10 out of 10. You know, absolute stock rising because he's literally committed himself when he's not been right. So I guarantee he'll get a great opportunity next year. From a supporter's perspective, we can say he's had a bit of a dip, due to injury. So I'm comfortable either way. It doesn't worry me. I've spoken about the player. That's all I need.
Yeah. And I guess what I would say is, as of right now, if you had to force me to pick who's going to start at right back first game of next season, I think it'll be Jurrien Timber. And that's what happens in great teams, right? Great players battle for positions, and they rise and fall in their roles in the squad. Bradley Barcola at PSG, brilliant player. Desiree Doué took his starting spot, right? Not because Barcola isn't great. So these things are dynamic, and they shift and they move, and I think that will continue to be a fun battle to watch. And it's a great luxury for Mikel. What do you have, Tim?
Yeah, falling for all the reasons you said, with the huge caveat of injuries. And yeah, the second point you make, Elliot, the fact that the guy who came in for him really stepped up as well. That does just, that's great for us. And I think it's probably good for Ben White as well. He's not going to start 50-odd games next season, even if he's fit for every single one. And nor should he, by the way, whereas 2 seasons ago he had to do that. And yeah, so falling for all of the above, all of the stated.
Yeah. Okay, Tim, I'll stay with you. William Saliba.
Yeah, so I'm going to say stock rising. And this is where I'll probably give a few stock risings where others might go stock hold. I think one of the things we take for granted as football fans is that once a player reaches a level where they're really high level, one of the most important players in your team, a stock holding that level to me is a stock rising, because being able to do that season after season after season, even if your performance level is the same, so say you're 9 out of 10 every season, I think that represents stock rising, because I think we take for granted that once you reach the mountain top, you stay there, and you don't. You have to work really, really insanely hard. Like everything in July and August is going to reset to zero again. And William Saliba and Gabriel and Rice and all these players we take for granted will be among our best players. They probably will, but it's because they put an insane amount of work in to do it. So I'd say his performance was about the same, but that's such a high level, and backing that up season after season is really what separates the properly elite players. And every year he stays the same or gets a little bit better is a big stock rising. So I'm going to say stock rising.
I like it. What about you, Clive?
Yeah, I think so. My reasoning is, I know there are people saying, "Oh, he's not as good as when Gabriel's not there." Well, we're different when Gabriel's not there, because he is the man, right? He is the daddy of that defence. So I actually think some of the games where he played without Gabriel, when we were focused, and the games I'm talking about, when we weren't focused, it was clear. It wasn't just him. When we were focused, he's played as good as anybody, because he was forced to take on more responsibility, be that leader. Been a huge development year for him without his mate for a long time, and he was that guy, and he, Kiwior improved next to him. And how has that happened? And he's probably played a senior role in that as well. So it's been a year of adversity, and where people had to step into different responsibilities and different positions. And I always look at it that way. When you have to step in for your mate and do something else, step into a different system just to cover the fact we have players out injured. There were times when he's there with Kiwior and a Ben White that can barely run, and he's having to hold the defence by himself. And I think he's done absolutely brilliant. So stock rising, it'll be a double stock rising when he signs that contract, he says, hopefully.
Okay, so stock rising there. I'm going to say stock hold. And Tim, I find myself persuaded by your comments, certainly, but I'm going to stick with stock hold. I think one of the reasons he could get a rising for me is, to your point about what we just take for granted, Tim, I think we take availability for granted. This is another season now where Saliba is at the top of outfield player minutes for Arsenal. Over 3,000 domestic minutes played again, played basically the whole season right up until the very end. Missed a game through a red card, obviously. I think it's interesting. He had 7 errors this season, and that feels high. I think it was 3 the season before, something like that. Let me look at that. So it was, let's look at the errors here. defensive actions, errors. Yes, 7 this season, 3 in his 38 90s last season, 7 in his 34 90s this season. So a little bit more errors. I mean, that's a low number. But I guess I would say if I had to think about his season, there are a couple more games I can think of where the level wasn't quite what I associate with him. But over the course of the season, I do think he was excellent, as he always is. This is a stock hold for me, but holding at a very high level. And as Clive pointed out, better with Gabriel. Well, no shit, Sherlock. Okay, Clive, speaking of the man, Gabriel Magalhaes.
Yeah, I don't really care about the ratings. Sorry, Elliot, but it's going to be a stock rising.
I mean, you got to give one because that's the point of the exercise. You already talked us out of the numerical ones.
I think, huge step forward. Just huge, really. And in a time where we can't create nothing, it's good to have the best goal-scoring defender in the league in our team from set pieces. So, but he's really, again, he stepped up. Sort of, he looks like an adult defender. He's the guy, mate. He's the guy to go in the car park straight in, right? And you need that in your team. When Haaland was trying to pick on him, he wasn't having any of it. When people get around him, he's just in there and he's just ferocious. I heard something that when they do set pieces in training, he barely scores. He just doesn't score. But then in the games, the level of commitment to throw your head at that ball is like completely different. And no one can get near him. No one wants to put their head near him when he accelerates into it. And he just epitomised what happens when you're across that white line. And there's not many clubs that have, one of their favourite songs is for a centre-back.
It's a good song, though.
And no one's ashamed in singing that one because he really does epitomise a lot of what we are, right? So, massive stock rising.
Yeah, I have him as a stock rising too. I just think it's a great season from him. We certainly missed him when we lost him. And center back partnerships are partnerships. I just think we have a great partnership. Saliba is better with Gabriel. Gabriel is better with Saliba. They really suit each other. They seem to really enjoy each other. He's critical to what we do in our attacking and defensive set pieces, as you saw when he was out. I think his passing is underrated. He breaks lines. He's very progressive with the way he passes the ball. I think he is getting better as a player. And his stock is rising for me in terms of his quality. It's great that we have him tied down to a new deal. Tim?
Yeah, control V, everything I said about Saliba. I'd say the other kind of, just as a comment, I guess slightly strange thing about Gabriel, he's like the big player we've come the closest to losing, I think, but he's also been the first twice to commit to, quote unquote, the project. He's been the first to sign the new deal, and I think that's really significant. And I hope that this is going to be the same as the last time, and that's almost like has a cascading effect and helps everyone else to come to that same decision. So, yeah, in one weird way, we were very, very close to losing him, but in another way, his commitment, we all know about his tangible commitment on the pitch, but his commitment off the pitch has been really, really important. He's just one of the totem poles of the team, and he's shown that for the third season in a row, I'd say. So definitely stock rising, and I probably would have given him player of the season myself.
Yeah, I think that's a good shout. I mean, to the extent you can give it to someone who played 25-ish league games. So let's move on to a trickier one. It's probably not tricky, and that's Jakub Kiwior. And I'll start here and I'll just say it's a massive stock rising. And it's such a weird thing with Kiwior. Look, we've got to be honest about our priors. I really did not rate him as being at the level. And yet, the season before this one, he started at left back in our best run in 20 years domestically, right? Now, there were a lot of sort of cupcake matchups there, and I don't know that it was him that was the cause of it, but he was in the team. It counts. And then you look at this season, and the most exciting part of this season was our Champions League run and getting past Madrid, and he's in the team for that playing center back. I think what has happened for me with Kiwior is he's gone from a guy where I'm like, let's move on from him and let's bring in someone better into the squad. He's gone from that to, this is exactly the caliber of squad player you want defensively, someone that you know can come in and know they're not as good as the starters, but can give you a level where you can beat a Real Madrid in the Champions League. And so kudos to Jakub Kiwior, who I think has gone from, initially looking very shaky, to showing he could be in the team in big moments, but maybe making some key errors. Bayern last season comes to mind. To now being in the team for big moments where he was a stalwart. And yeah, I think he deserves a lot of credit. So, Tim, what do you have on Jakub Kiwior? I have him as a big stock rising.
Yeah, definitely stock rising. I'd say there's kind of there's a potential question here about, and I think this is probably true of most players. When he has a run in the team, he looks absolutely fine. Looks completely fine. That's been the case twice now in two different positions. Opposites when you're in and out. Does he look quite as good? No, nowhere near. But then, which also begs the question: does that make him a suitable backup? But at the same time, then there's the question: does anyone look good, particularly in a position like centre back? Does anyone look good playing one every 10 games? Probably not.
No,
but
yeah.
definitely a stock rising. A lot of us, even those of us who liked him, were probably worried when he had to come into the team for Gabriel. And listen, there was a drop off to Gabriel, but it was nowhere near as big as many of us thought. So big stock rising.
Yeah, Clive.
Yeah, I've always liked him, funny enough, as a player. I know he's had things that are quite obvious. I do think the mistakes were small, but the punishment was big. There was some early ones where he just disappeared in a box, just disappeared into the turf. We couldn't find him at a critical moment when the ball's in the middle. And he's just somebody settling down, communication-wise, language-wise. Gabriel was a great example of this when he first came over. The language was an issue. He was dropped for certain games, and you could just see him settle. But I always looked at him and thought, when he's running across the pitch, I thought he was good. I think his passing is exquisite, and I just held on to those things, knowing that if you just said to somebody, be more assertive, then everything else is already there. It was moments when he doubted himself, made him look hesitant, that made people question him, question his quality. The quality was always there. He was always robust. He's always fit, always available. He has big chunks where he doesn't play. I think I've heard Amy Lawrence say something. It's beautiful words, as she always uses. And she sort of said, imagine being him. He was on the Premier League bench for 3 months as an unused substitute. And then he comes in and has to play. And then we all judge him. And so sometimes when we're judging people, we have to have some context, And he hit the ground running almost immediately. So how hard must he train, to be that ready when you haven't played for 3 months? It's just incredible. I think he had a couple of international games before he eventually came into our team. That probably helped him. But he played one in those games. Then he came in and did the business. So, yeah, I'm pleased for him. It'd be interesting to see what we do with him because his price is right there. And sometimes with a 25-year-old, you got to say, mate, you got to go and play. If we've made a profit on you, then you may have to go. But from this conversation, a huge stock rising and a lot of gratitude, right? Because we're in the Champions League next year.
Yeah, and he gives us the luxury of saying, we're not going to sell. And we're just not going to address center back this summer because we have a lot of business to do elsewhere. Or he gives us the luxury of saying, thanks for pumping up the price. You can bring in money that we really need to use to strengthen the squad in other areas. Either way, that's a huge value to us at a critical moment of evolution. So I agree with you, Clive. This is where I feel we may have left ourselves short with the stock rising, stock falling hold section because we're going to now do Miles Lewis-Skelly. And it's like, what do you think, guys? Should we stay humble in this section? I don't know. But yeah, I mean, look, Miles Lewis-Skelly is as clear as stock rising as possible. And frankly, the rising falling hold is really just an excuse to give your sort of potted summary of the player's season. So for me, what I would just say about Miles Lewis-Skelly is for an 18-year-old to demonstrate that he can play game in, game out, not just show up and have a good game, but thrive in the unrelenting pressure of the Premier League and Champions League fixture calendar, and to be able to play at the Bernabeu and play against Real Madrid and against PSG under that pressure and in the big games in the Premier League at 18 and hold the level consistently. I don't know what Miles Lewis-Skelly's future is at Arsenal because I think there are so many ways he can benefit the club. I think he could be a star for us in maybe 3 different positions. But if Miles Lewis-Skelly hadn't shown up this season, I want you to start to think about what the left back position would have looked like and what our season could have looked like. we were rescued by an 18-year-old who didn't just stand in, fill in, and with no disrespect to Kiwior, I think that's sort of what he did at left back the season before this one. Miles Lewis-Skelly came in and became a star for us in that position. So kudos to him. Showed his character, too, under incredible scrutiny by the global and British media and narratives around him that were always nonsense, but never seemed to get into his mind, into his focus. So I think he's a stock rising mentally, physically, talent, position, you name it. Tim, he's the kind of player you find in your academy and it changes your world.
Yeah, this is possibly the biggest stock rising in the whole league.
Yeah.
And one of the biggest ones in Europe. I don't know enough about the other big leagues really, but I'd be very surprised if there's someone who's escalated in terms of their position in a club hierarchy at a massive club like he has. And I guess I'd say for people listening who are like, oh, you're giving out everyone's a stock rising, are they? Like,
well, we're just doing the defensive side of the ball right now.
Exactly. We're doing behind the ball right now.
Yeah.
And things might level out a little bit as we go further up the pitch. But yeah, there's nothing else to add, is there? This is the biggest stock rising, certainly in our squad and probably in any squad.
Clive?
Yeah, there was a period where he was the most famous 18-year-old footballer in the country. Yeah. That's it. And when you score for England, you're just thinking, how far could this go? What's going on here? So yeah, I forget how he plays. I mean, he plays brilliantly, and to show we all know how he plays now, but that's only going to get better as he gets more precise in his actions and selection when he needs to burst forward, etc. But just imagine how his life has changed this year. You know, when I'm out walking my dog and I'm thinking, if I win the lottery, I wouldn't change. I'd just buy this house here and this house there and this house there and this car there. But I'll be the same bloke, honestly. I'll give it. But he's actually sort of won the football lottery, hasn't he? And his life he has just gone to a new stratosphere. He's gone from, playing with kids, basically, to rocking up at St George's Park with the elite players in England and bursting his way into the England team. Just like that, in a few months' time. Playing at the Bernabeu, playing in Paris, dominating in those fixtures. Oh, it's just. I just think it's incredible. And on the personal side, how has he managed this? His support structure we know about, but wow, not just him; it's the people around him. I mean, I dread to think the changes in his life have happened, and he still goes out there and plays. Hat tip, mate, top class.
Yeah, well said. All right, we'll wrap up the defensive side of the ball here with Ricardo Calafiori, and I'll give Calafiori a stock falling. And the reason I'm going to give him a stock falling, it's always sort of weird. Well, falling from what, mate? He wasn't our player before this season. So, but the reason I'm going to give him a stock falling is my massive, massive belief in his talent and the importance of the signing when we made it. I saw him as potentially being able to revolutionize a position. And we've seen a little of that. The gift this player has at causing chaos in the attacking end. I think the comfort he has on the ball, the class of him, the physical build of the player. I was really dreaming of something sensational from him. I think the two things that we saw this season, first of all, I think that there are still warts in his game defensively, in his sort of decision-making and 1v1 defending. And I think that there are obvious durability concerns now that we have to be aware of. But another reason he's a stock falling is this is not a signing we made with the expectation that the little heralded academy player Miles Lewis-Skelly might just snatch that position from him long term. Now, I want to be clear. I still think his talent is moonshot talent, and that there are ways we can use him that can absolutely bring our game to the next level. And if you think attacking is where we need to improve, put this guy on the pitch somewhere and watch it improve. But he goes from being a player who I thought arrived with a chance to totally transform us and becomes a player now who goes into his next season having to prove he can stay fit, prove there's a position for him that he's going to play more. And that's not where I would have seen him when we made the signing. He had some big moments this season, scored some important goals, and I'm still very excited by the talent. But it is definitionally a stock falling for me from what I thought he was coming to be versus what he will go into season 2 at Arsenal being. Tim, what about you?
Yeah, completely agree. There's also the question as well that last summer we had a relatively restricted budget. We had, the PSR summer, as I spoke about last week, and I think rightfully, even if like people like Mikel Merino and Ricardo Calafiori are good players, one played more than the other, important players or whatever, that question will always be there, I think, about was that the best spend of the money last summer, and I still think that's very open to debate. But yeah, I guess also with Calafiori, there's that anxiety that obviously he had a big knee injury when he was younger, and so having the, is it bad luck? Is it connected to that? Mentally, you can't write it off yet that maybe this will be, this might be how it is going forward. Might not. He might have just been unlucky. He might have just slipped a couple of times, but I think the way he got those injuries was very similar as well, and it makes me question maybe the stability in that knee. But yeah, so it has to be a stock falling. I very much think if he plays a decent amount next year, it will be a stock rising, no question.
I was just going to say the range of outcomes on this player is probably the widest for me of anyone we're going to discuss today, because the range of outcomes could be from it doesn't really work out and we sell him back to Italy, to his unique ability to influence the game in the attacking third creates a pathway for him, and he just goes from strength to strength, and that immense talent. He's still, 22, going on 23, just blossoms. He stays fit, and he is a devastating agent of chaos that no other team really has an answer for. And I could see anything in between those ranges of outcomes. So, Tim, I find projecting him hard, but this season, certainly not what we would have hoped.
Yeah.
No, that's exactly right.
Yeah. Tim, pardon me, Clive.
Sorry, Tim. I thought you meant me. So
I don't know what I mean.
Did. So yeah, I'll say stop falling just to agree, but I actually think
you don't have to agree.
I'd say hold, and the reason I'd say hold, it's just injury, isn't it? It's just injury. When he's had his times defensively when he's not been sharp, is when he's not been fit. And even the manager said, I rushed him back towards the end of the season. He didn't play the last game. He's already on his holidays. So if he's going to be Ben White's training partner, we're going to have a fantastic player on our hands. Mm-hmm. But this is what I'm watching with him, because I think he's got some transformation to do physically. And it's possible if you're going to work at it. So if I'm seeing too many nightclub pictures, I'm going to have the ump. Right, so because it's all in his body. He just needs to get super fit to as Ben White did when he transformed his body from being a centre back to being up and down full back. As Granit Xhaka did when he moved positions and he became far fitter up and down player. As Bukayo's done it, Miles has done it. There's room for him to develop physically, And I remember thinking back to Nicolas Pepe, never developed. Same guy when he came, same guy when he left. I always question, how hard did you work? And I'm looking at Calafiori, how hard are you going to work? Because your talent is Real Madrid level talent. It really is. And they were in for him. We had to nick him quickly. So he's a world talent, but he needs to be on the pitch. Otherwise, he's a figment of our imagination and he's in catalogues wearing clothes, right? That's what he is. And you don't want that to happen, right? So but when he plays football, he creates things. He invents things. Things happen around him. And that's not easy to have that talent. He's already spoken about wanting to be in midfield, at some point. And I'm thinking, yeah, mate, you could be brilliant in midfield. And so when you mention the word there, range of outcomes, the range of outcomes with him are endless, truly endless.
Yeah, I believe that.
When he plays centre-back, he does it brilliantly. And I wonder if the original thought process was to move Kiwior on and Tomiyasu play, be that guy. And then he has that left-sider, that left-sider role, if everyone's fit, and he goes out the pecking order and brings in that way. But I think he's a fantastic player, and one of the ones I'm excited to see next season. But I'll go stop falling or stop hold. Doesn't really worry me, to be honest, Elliot.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's funny in a way because his arc is, from a stock rising falling standpoint, is similar to Ben White's, which is simply, if you told me next season they fought for their place and won it back and made a big impact in it, sure. But in their injury absence, two very talented players made a real impact in their positions. And so it creates an interesting dynamic moving forward. But again, That's what you want in a good squad. We need more of that up front, right? Where players are pushing each other and taking each other's position, and less of that in the back where we clearly have it. Let's switch to midfield and attack. These are probably going to be the more interesting ratings after all. And the only way to get there is to tell you about some great brands whose stocks are clearly rising because of your interest and patronage for them. One of them is Shopify. Look, if you want to sell something on the web, this is how you do it. It's really that simple. I've created Shopify sites, and I will tell you the things I'm not good at. I don't have enough time to tell you that, but figuring out the tax ramifications or the shipping issues or how to make sure someone who has something in their cart checked out and all this stuff that, big Fortune 500 companies have teams of people to figure out. You don't have teams of people to figure out. You know what? How do you figure out how to plug it into Instagram or TikTok or Facebook Shop or any of that stuff? You don't have to figure that out either, because Shopify does all of that. You simply put up the pictures in the descriptions and they take care of the rest with pre-built themes, drag and drop design. It's so simple to do. It plugs you in all the platforms and you just look like you have a Fortune 500 e-commerce business, but really you're just doing the thing you're passionate about. Established in 2025 has a nice ring to it, doesn't it? Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision and start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Do it now. And, Manscaped. Funny story. I just used my Lawnmower 5.0 earlier today. Is a thing you didn't want to know. But it is the case, like, as silly as it sounds, because I remember when I first heard about this brand, I'm like, that's really silly. But then I was like, well, I do shave my body parts, and I do use terrible things to do that. And it would be nice to have good quality products. And so their beard hedger, their face trimmer, all great. But the Lawnmower 5.0, that is the best purpose-built tool out there for shaving your privates. And even if that is a silly thing to talk about, it is a thing you do. It now has the foil blade, by the way, so you can go completely smooth, reduces the risk of nicks, cuts, and irritation with the technology that they use. And by the way, incredibly long battery life, works in the shower. I love all that. They have the white hot colorway now available in the UK, EU, and Australia. And all you have to do is visit manscaped.com and use promo code ArsenalVision for 15% off your entire order at manscaped.com. White hot looks, smooth result. The White Hot 5.0 Ultra brings the heat without cooking your skin. It's sleek, easy to use, and way less terrifying than whatever you were using before. It's 15% off with code ArsenalVision at manscaped.com. Stay cool, stay smooth, and leave the burns to the sun. And last but not least, Indeed is a hiring platform where you can attract, interview, and hire all in one place. And Indeed is a business concept that just made sense from day one when I heard about it, because I think the hiring process just stinks. I think it stinks for people hiring, and I think it stinks for people trying to get hired. You have to apply on 1 million websites. You have to maintain 1 million job postings. You have no idea if you're going to get the best candidates. The candidates have no idea if they're going to get noticed, so there's low confidence that you're going to be seen, even if you think you're a good fit. And there's low confidence that you're going to find the best fit because of the volume of responses on multiple sites that you have to check and how much time it takes. Well, you know what? You don't have to do that. Indeed is all you need when it comes to hiring. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other sites. Indeed's sponsored jobs help you stand out. With sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page of relevant candidates, so you reach the people you want faster. And it makes a huge difference. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. There's no need to wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners to this show get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Just go to Indeed.com/ArsenalVision right now and support our show by saying you heard about it, Indeed, on this podcast. Indeed.com/ArsenalVision. Terms could just apply. Hiring Indeed. All you need. So none of that.
Indeed.
None of it. Good stuff, team. And now we'll talk about whether it was good stuff from the Arsenal team. Okay, in the midfield we go. Tim, Thomas Partey.
Yeah, this is one of the ones I find the most difficult. In terms of availability, massive stock rising. I'm going to say stock hold, almost as a sitting on the fence, because obviously his availability went up. I still think there are flaws in his game that cause us some issues. At times, I'll kind of take out the games he played at right back where I think there were issues, but it's kind of not his position. But at the same time, I can't go with a stock rising because none of the, other than availability, I guess, none of the issues I've seen before were solved in any way. So I guess I'm going to go with a stock hold because I just don't really know any other way, to be honest. So stock hold for me.
Yeah, this is where I think the stock rising, stock falling, and stock hold thing is based on expectation, right? So if you think a stock's going to be at $1 and it goes to $2, it's a stock rising, right? Even though it's not at $100. Going into this season, I thought, first of all, Thomas Partey might be sold last summer. I was very reluctant to have him be a major part of the squad because I didn't think he'd be available, because that's been a concern for him. And I wasn't sure what the level was, because let's be honest, at the tail end of last season, and I can only give you my truth, I thought when he came in for Jorginho at the tail end of last season, it did not look good. And there were words like washed being used. He was getting run past a lot. And if I'm being intellectually honest, and you got to do that, we're talking about football here, you got to be intellectually honest, I think Thomas Partey played at a level this season I did not think he still had. I just do. He was available, he played well, and he showed that he could run a bit. He showed that he could chase players down. I mean, if your last memories of him are the very, very, very end of the season, I think we started to see him fade at the very, very end of the season again. But frankly, my biggest stock falling for Thomas Partey is picking up that yellow card against Real Madrid in the second leg, which was idiotic. He didn't need to do it. And I think if he doesn't do it and Merino plays up front against PSG in the first leg and he plays in the first leg, maybe we get through the semifinal of the Champions League. So yeah, I'm frustrated by that. But I have to be intellectually honest. From what I expected going into the season, from what I saw at the tail end of last season, the athleticism he demonstrated this season, the durability he showed, it is, from a footballing standpoint, a stock rising. And, you know, whether or not that's something you want to lean into to continue that experiment and experience going into his mid-30s now, that's a different story. You know, I would like to see us go another direction. But on what I saw, Clive, I can only tell you what I see, and that's a stock rising based on availability and the level that he displayed.
Yeah, he's one of those players that, like Kiwior, that was stretched out a bit because we had problems at fullback. And I'll tell you now, if Thomas Partey didn't play right back, we're playing Josh Nichols at right back, because that's who was next on the list.
And even he couldn't stay fit.
And he got injured. And Kiwior played right centre-back on occasions because we were completely, had nobody left. You know, so people that really step out of positions, I really respect. I think he's got weaknesses in the box, regarding particularly aerially in the box. I don't think he's good. But I sort of, you know, the Villa goals, remember that? The back post? You know, when he's in his box, it's not great. You know, honestly, he isn't great. But he can play right back outside of his box, if you know what I mean, like from a midfielder position.
It just inverts, yeah.
And in midfield, at the start of the season, he was our best midfielder. Because Ødegaard wasn't there. Declan Rice was struggling. Remember, he was struggling every part of the season.
Came back from the Euros, yeah.
And he was our best midfielder. So he is a stock rising by what we're doing. If you want to talk about it a bit more broadly, then I do think there's a period in your football life when maybe it's time for something new. You know, and that doesn't mean that what you've done has not been great. You know, he's done some good stuff, and he's had his most appearances this year. Statistically, it's been his best season. But I felt historically, if we're going through his whole career, that based from football side of things, there was too much reliance on him. We didn't understand his body right. Understand his body. He's had his strong season. But I think it's time for something else. You know, but I was talking about stock rising based on this year. But that's okay. I often talk about renewal, don't I? This is the time sometimes. You've got to take it and show a different face, you know? So yeah, a decent season, but for this and other players, I'm going to say the same thing. Sometimes you need to change what you're doing.
Yeah. And I just think, if I think back to last season when he came back in and we beat Chelsea 5-0, but it was kind of a basketball game. And then we had, you know, the Tottenham game that was 3-0 up and it wound up 3-2 and the games were getting very stretched out. We had that really bad.
I don't agree with that. I honestly, I felt some of the analysis back then was not the best. We were nervous. We were looking for things that weren't right. And we said things like, when Jorginho plays, we're different. Well, when Jorginho plays, Declan Rice is different. And that was the key thing. It's all about distances. It's always a collective thing, a connection thing. And I don't think we were connected. There were times I felt he was a bit deep on occasions, and sort of almost like the first line of our defence was our last line of our defence. But I also recognise that when we go deep, our fullbacks get higher, we get out in wide areas. I think it's the collective tactical analysis. We weren't sure about him. Nobody expected this level of availability. And so we were sunsetting him, you know, and which I'm sort of doing now, right? For next season, I'm sunsetting him for next season.
You are.
I am, but that's okay. But he's had a decent season football wise. So yeah, that's where we are.
Well, let's say this: whether the analysis were good or bad, I can only speak my truth. And my truth is I saw a player at the tail end last season that I thought couldn't run around. And that clearly wasn't the case, right? So I wound up being wrong, but that's part of the stock rising is I was wrong, and it wound up being important for us because of availability, because of the player we're going to talk about now, and that's Jorginho, went from being the guy who was the linchpin of our midfield during our best run last season to just really not being used, candidly. And when he was used, there was a part of me early in the season where I was like, why aren't we seeing Jorginho more? And then we saw Jorginho a little more, and you're like, I think I get it. Maybe he really is just out of legs at this point. So I'm going to give him a stock falling just from the fact that he went from really important, valuable part of the squad during an impressive run to maybe just finally being at the end of his useful playing career, at least at the Premier League level. And Tim, obviously, some players give more than just what they give on the pitch. Was he a coach, on the touchline? Was he a coach in the squad? Those things are important. Obviously, by the way we gave him a send-off on social media and the way it was talked about, you could see what his value is to the group. But this season, he simply did not contribute on the pitch to the extent that anyone might have expected given the role he had last season.
Yeah, this is one of the clearest stock fallings in the squad, I think, and it's said with love and respect.
Yeah.
I think for what he did for the team, as you mentioned, both on and off the pitch. I know I said this at the time, but I think the fact he was selected on the bench at PSG so that he could go and be a coach 20 yards away from the dugout was significant. I always noticed as well he was subbed when he was on the opposite side to the dugout at the Emirates. That happened a couple of times, so he could walk around very, very slowly and again perhaps do some of that kind of coaching beside the pitch. But I can't remember whether we did in the pre-season predictions, like, how many appearances will Jorginho make or whatever. I whether we did or not, this is much less than I thought we'd see him. Particularly without another midfield signing. If you told me it's going to be Partey and Jorginho again, and Jorginho's only going to play this many minutes, I'd have been very, very surprised. So clear stock falling. I don't think I saw massive flaws when I saw him, but to be honest, we didn't see enough of him, and you have to appeal to authority there on what the coaches are seeing on the training ground. So thanks a lot, but definitely stock falling. Yeah, wish him all the best though. Well, within reason, because he's playing for Flamengo, who are not a team I have a lot of time for.
Oh.
But yeah.
Well, I mean, I'm not going to pretend to understand any of that, but I do agree with everything you said otherwise. Clive, I assume you're probably in the same bucket here.
Yeah, it's just physically. Physically he wasn't able to maintain it. And by the way, it's very hard to physically find a level when you don't play all the time. But he finds a way to give value in other ways. I remember when he came out of Chelsea dressing room, they lost a lot when he came out of their dressing room. And I've been thinking about that about Arsenal as well, because he's obviously very well respected by everybody in the club. And this is why I think Mikel Merino will take up a lot of that role. That senior statesman, that sensible person. I think Jorginho is that for the group, a coach on the pitch. Other players who I feel were better than him don't give of themselves like he does for other people. And I think that's a very important point, particularly when you're a central pillar in the team. And I'm talking about Thomas Partey there. I think he's a good player, but he doesn't give of himself. I don't see him coaching other people. I think that's really important when you're central. And so, yeah, a player that we're going to miss his influence, and that window of Jorginho, Trossard and Kiwior, that window is a sneaky good window. I think it's a January window, wasn't it? Sneaky good window that is. And Jorginho played his role. But funny enough, watching Zubimendi last night and watching how he maintains his line height to be just where you need to be so you can drop back or drop forward and run through. That is Jorginho, but the running bit is now missing. So the line height doesn't become your friend because you can't be mobile enough, So, but I think he's a great player to study when you want to study that position. And when we first went for him, I thought, what are we doing that for? And then he educates you just by watching him play. So it's a stop falling, but with love and respect, like Tim said, basically.
Well said. Let's stay in midfield, Clive. Stay with you. Declan Rice. You want me to tell you a little bit about the player before you dive into it, or are you familiar?
Yeah, mate, you knock yourself out if you want to. Feel free.
Midfielder, kind of plays 8, runs a lot, big and tall, kicks the ball hard, good at free kicks.
Well, that's it. Kind of plays 8. And that's a conversation we wouldn't have had at the start of the season, maybe. Yeah, and that is the discussion, isn't it? You know, I think he is now that player. He is now the player that controls us, I even said at one time, I'm not sure I should have said this, but basically when he plays well, we played well. That's towards the end of the season. That's what it felt like. You know, is that too big a statement? Am I being too dramatic? But,
no, I think it's correct.
Yeah.
It's a correct statement, especially in the absence of Bukayo Saka.
Yeah, that's a good point. And so yeah, and he's really elevated himself, and he just I love watching him play. I even I love the way he fixes his issues. So I'll give an example of that, right? So obviously the way he receives the ball can be questioned on occasions, although I think it's massively improved. Honestly, I do. Watch him closely. We watch him with England now. He just looks like a really good technical player, and not a centre half playing in midfield. But what he does really smartly, he knows he can run, he knows he can move. So what he does, he separates away from the ball. So when he chops back against the grain, he's now running with the ball. So his starting position has helped his technical play. I felt at the start of the season, particularly against Brighton, he was too high too early, and then he wasn't getting involved. He wasn't getting enough touches. He's like 25 touches. That's rubbish, But now he's getting touches. He's driving, and he's now playing to his strength because he knows how to receive it. And he knows when I receive it, what I can do, and he's now doing it. It's like he's taken off the shackles and said, "Yeah, mate, I belong here. This is my show. I'm going to show everything," and everyone's falling in around him. So, a big stock rising. Obviously, we're looking at him next year. He's got to get healthy because he's carried injuries all year. He had foot problems, toe problems. If he gets healthy and right, we're going to see the very best of him next season. And let's be honest, we've all got the memories of the Bernabeu in our mind. And I remember I sat on the stage, one of our live events, and I said, Declan Rice, I think he's better than Jude Bellingham. And as I said that, I thought, what have you said, Clive? What have you said? But we at the Bernabeu, Declan Rice was better than Jude Bellingham. And he showed him, didn't he? He matched him in every single facet of the game. So that's the level of play that we have. So stock rising.
Tim?
Sorry, my doorbell went. Who is this about again?
Declan Rice. Do you need some background on him?
No. So I'm going to have this as a stock hold.
Ooh.
Just because if I take the totality of his season, the first half was probably a slight stock falling, with the caveat that I don't think he was fit. And then the second half, again, the kind of the Saliba, Gabriel clause, he was, I think, at the level he was at last season, which, for all the reasons I already explained, means a stock rising. So, eliminating recency bias and taking his season as a whole, I'd say stock hold. But a player who, had he been fit the whole season, I think would have been a very clear stock rising. Obviously, one player of the season would have been in the conversation for that. For me, I wouldn't have gone there just because, like I said, the first couple of months post Euros when he had a bit of an injury, wasn't quite there. But just again, with Gabriel, with Saliba, with Saka, just absolute totem poles and pillars of this team, and hopefully will be for years to come.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go a slightly different direction and stock falling Declan Rice. I'm kidding. Can you imagine? just for the lulz. No, he's a stock rising. He's brilliant. We're very lucky to have him, and he's a great player. I am very excited to see how he continues to grow and develop and what he adds to his game. And I think he started to look like he was more and more comfortable around the box and playing that number 8 role. And Mikel Arteta is just going to continue to evolve how he uses the player. He's brilliant, and I'm very excited that we have him. We'll stay in the midfield, not really, with Mikel Merino. Oh, this is my chance. I'm going to give Mikel Merino a stock hold. And I was thinking stock falling, but I'm going to go hold. I don't know if Mikel Merino had a good season. This is where I'm just going to have, you know what? Sometimes I pull my punches on the pod, and I have to be honest. When we first started doing the pod, I just say whatever's in my mind. And as it's grown, I've been more inclined to avoid touching the hot stove, avoid saying the thing that might get people to ridicule me. But I'm in a weird mood today, and we're an hour and 14 in, so I'm going to say something that people aren't going to like. I don't know if he had a good season, Mikel Merino was a revelation for us at striker, saved our season. There is no denying that. What he did for us at striker saved our season. And I don't feel any closer to knowing if this is a player I want playing in midfield for us, which is so weird because Mikel Merino is one of our players of the season, no question, in what he did at striker. But I don't think he'll play a single minute at striker next season, or, certainly barring another catastrophe. So the question is, where will he play? And then you have to go back and say, well, he'll play in midfield. And this is why it's a stock hold for me. I'm not going to give him a stock falling. I'm kidding about that. But I don't really feel like I know him any better as a midfielder. Do you? Do you feel like you know him better as a midfielder? Do you feel like you can honestly say, if he plays 25 times in midfield for Arsenal, I know exactly what he's going to be and what he's going to do? If you do, that's great, by the way. But I got pretty high on this. But, I was down on the signing when we first got linked, and then I watched and we scouted, and I kind of saw the vision for what he could be. And part of that vision was I thought Rice would move to 6. And so I got excited about the evolution of Rice at 6, Merino with his late arrival and his heading and his dual winning at left 8, and Ødegaard with all the things that Ødegaard was renowned for at right 8. And that vision looked really exciting for me. That vision does not seem to be where we're headed, which, by the way, is fine. But the reason it's a stock hold, if you say, what are you giving him as a striker? He's a stock rising. But he's a stock hold for me because I don't know any more about him in terms of what he's going to be for us in midfield next season. And so, Tim, it may feel like I'm just trying to be intentionally controversial. I'm not. I'm giving my honest to God truth, which is I cannot praise him highly enough for what he did for us. But as an evaluation of how he will fit into our future and what he will be in our midfield role, I don't really know that I have a clearer picture, but it's got to be a stock hold for me. It's a weird one, but that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. This is another... What it isn't is a stock falling. We can rule that out.
Yeah, I was being facetious about that, yeah.
But, I'd probably say stock hold for the reasons you say. Then it depends on how do you pass and value what he did as a striker. If you take that in isolation, it's definitely a stock rising because he adapted to that role very well. I do also think that, completely correctly and understandably, we're being kind to him on that because he wasn't nor should we have expected him to be. But he was I think he started off and he kind of struggled a bit in that position, as you'd expect. I think the substitute appearance at Leicester has kind of given us this, he came in as a striker and he was great. The games after that were not great, like at Forest, West Ham, not great, but totally understandable because he's never played there before. So I think there's an extent to which we're gilding the lily a bit by being nice to him about his role as a striker. I think he grew into it and he got better at it. It wasn't perfect, but again, it would be completely harsh. It would be overly harsh to say, oh, he wasn't a world-class striker, was he? Of course he wasn't. But
it's not the bar he should be held to.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. He did a decent job, but at the same time, it was a decent job. It was probably a 6 out of 10 job over the whole thing, which is, again, I would have taken that if you told me in February. But so that's what makes it difficult to pass. But I'm with you as a midfielder. We just haven't seen it yet. And again, that's a circumstantial one because we weren't able to see it because he was injured at the beginning of the season and we weren't playing all that well. And he has all the other caveats as well that make a lot of our attackers difficult to judge, which is they were without Saka and Havertz and the guys who make our attack tick. And Ødegaard wasn't on form, and he has all of those caveats that all the other guys have. So really difficult to pass, which again probably makes it about a stock hold. But if you were to say stock rising because he saved our lives as an emergency striker, I wouldn't call you an idiot for that.
No, of course. And just as a final point, right? No one's saying he's a bad midfielder. What I'm saying is I don't feel any closer or clearer to knowing exactly how he will play in our midfield or what his role will be, which is why it's a hold for me, Clive, is that the same qualities that I saw being potentially valuable to us are still there, but how they're going to fit into this puzzle isn't any clearer for me. Is the picture still muddy for you, or is it a little clearer for you?
Yeah, you should, in my opinion, you shouldn't really judge him based on the fact you're not sure where he's going to fit. You should judge him on what he's done. And once he was fit, then we saw the player, and I can't remember which game it was. It was a game Tim might remember. It was a game when they turned this around, Tim, and they went to North Bank first. Remember that game? They happened once this season. I can't remember which one it was.
That might have been West Ham.
Yeah, it might have been
No,
that.
no, it wasn't.
Well, I hope
they
not,
scored.
'cause we
No,
didn't
they
play
scored
well
their
in that
winner.
game.
But I think he scored the winner. Was it Chelsea? It might have been the one he did the back header. Like the
That was we were kicking the right because he scored it in front of the North Bank in the second half, didn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, so basically, I saw him like pressing in that game, and that's when I realised, oh, you weren't fit this season. So if you're judging him over the whole season, that was well into the second half of the season. So in the first half of the season, we weren't sure about him, but he was not fit. He was injured. But as a player, again, really interesting one, because again, that French game in the week, he was, brilliant in that game. Really was. He had the freedom to roam, to move, to collect. And I think, Elliot, what's doing your brain is, I'm not sure how he fits with us. Our more structured play, but I just think he's going to be a really important player for us. In the first season, Declan Rice never got substituted hardly at all. And that's got to change as well. And so I think he is a really interesting player that can play a number of positions, and he can play both sides on eights. He can obviously do the false nine thing, and he can score. And he can score goals every time he plays. It feels like he's scored a close shave.
Yeah.
So he took his penalty yesterday against Portugal. It's just like he's just in. He's technically so solid. So I'm not there with him yet. I'm not saying, by the way, people are going to be dropped. He's got to play. But there's a player there, isn't there? There really is a top level player there. So
Yeah.
So it's going to get us over the line. I think he's one of those players that allows you to win stuff. So just get fit, get out with Calafiori and Ben White. That's three of them training together now. And then we're going to get a player.
You know what's funny? He played a whole season for us, and I go into this summer feeling about him like I did last summer when we were about to go into next season, which is I see all the ways he could make us a lot better, and I'm still kind of excited to see how it fits, but I don't know. And that's why it'll be interesting to see what his role is, because his role next season, let's be clear, unless we screw it up again, his role is not going to be striker, right? So it'll be fun to see where he's used and how he's used. So now we get to one that I think is it tricky? I don't know. Martin Ødegaard. Clive, I'll stay with you. What do you have for Martin Ødegaard?
That's a falling for me. I think because it's a falling for me, for all of us, because I think we've become so reliant on him being an 8 out of 10 every time he puts his socks on, that when he wasn't, it was a message to me that said, oh my God, we are so reliant on him, because we lost our creativity, we lost our bounce, we lost everything from a watchability point of view. Not just him, but with Saka going out as well. We lost something. We looked quite turgid, and we were open to criticism. Jose Mourinho football, Stoke City football. We lost a lot, and when he came back, he wasn't himself. Consistently. He started to show sparks towards the end of the season, but I do think you can't say I think we scored 20 goals less than last season, Elliot. I'm not sure the exact number. He's a big part of that, right? I think he scored 3. Was it 3 this year, his numbers? A big part of this, he's got to show his goal scoring intent, or he's got to control from the deep. I felt we lost him in the high end of the pitch, and we lost him deeper as well. We didn't get enough of him, and people are looking at our attacking play and saying we lack centrality, because people are not standing in the danger areas and taking responsibility. And so I think he'll be fine, but we've got to say what we see. I think his injury and subsequent struggles, for whatever reason you want to show, has been a major part of our downturn this season. So stop falling for me.
Yeah, I mean, he played more like a central midfielder than an attacking 8 when he played this season. I think that there is that part of his game I worry about a little bit, which is, does Martin Ødegaard feel comfortable dropping deeper and picking up the ball in the first phase of possession and first phase of play more than he feels comfortable finishing off a move? What made him so special this season before this was he was just great at the end of moves, both with his final ball to other players and with his shooting. I think we came out of last season thinking he might be the best shooter in the team, just in terms of the power and accuracy he generates getting on the end of moves. And this season that was just gone. I'm inclined to think injury and personal life issues combine to make this a lost season for him and that he will come back.
Yeah.
I don't think players at his age show the elite level that he showed over an entire couple of seasons and then just lose it. I mean, it happens, but I don't think that's the case. And it's also worth saying, was he bad this season? No, I don't think he was bad this season. I think that is online discourse. I just think he did not give us the things in the final third that we needed from a team that was already missing so many key components. And so the focus was even more on him to provide those because of how much was missing. And he was even less able to provide it. It's a stock falling, but it's a stock falling where for me, again, I am just inclined to think he is the player that we've seen him be rather than thinking this season is indicative of what we're going to get in the future. Tim, what about you?
I think this is one of the clearest stock fallings there is, and I don't think it needs a lot of discussion. He's been significantly below the level that we associate with him. That doesn't mean I don't think he's been as bad as people say. I think he's been like a 5 or 6 out of 10. I don't think he's been a disaster area. But the reason we talk, or a lot of us, or a lot of fans talk about it like that is because obviously his level is much higher. And this is part of what I meant earlier when this informs my thinking partly on some of those guys who've stayed at the level. When I say like staying at the level is not something you can take for granted because you can have seasons like this. I saw Dennis Bergkamp have a few of them, and we're talking one of the best players in the club's history. So it's clearly a stock falling. Whichever caveats you want to issue, it's a very clean and clear stock falling, and I definitely argue with even a stock hold. I think to say a stock hold would be to severely underrate the guy's talent.
Absolutely, yeah, and underrate the contribution he made the season before. Tim, I'll stay with you with Ethan Nwaneri.
I mean, this is very much a stock rising because his stock was, well, I say nowhere. Did he play any games last season? I remember him coming. Yeah, he did. He came on as a sub in that 6-0 against West Ham, didn't he? Which was like, were they his only senior minutes last season? So
I think so. Yeah, here, let me tell you. So
and that was like
at least at
10
Premier
minutes.
League level, he played 14 minutes in one appearance season before this one.
Yeah, when we were 6-0 up away at West Ham. So, which, by the way, is absolutely fine when he was like 16 years old at the time. Yeah, massive stock rising. His stock over the season probably went down towards the end. I think, actually, Arteta managed him very well as well by probably taking him out. I mean, obviously, Saka came back, so that meant he could, but taking him out of the limelight a little bit and just letting... not letting him, let's say his standards dropped in training a little bit or people were starting to find him out. Like, it reminds me of that, not that it's a disgrace, but that Mayor Quimby line from The Simpsons where he talks to his nephew and says, make sure all your disgraces are private. And it's it's just that kind of, okay, I've seen a little drop off on the training ground, we don't have to show that to everyone, and that's fine for the level that he is at his career. But I mean, he scored 8 goals, didn't he? He scored goals in the Champions League, scored Premier League goals. I mean, just an absolutely incredible talent. And we're talking like Torres, Rooney, Fabregas, those are the only guys who've done this at this age. And it should be said that all of those guys finished early. So we do have a duty to look after him and make sure that when he's 31 years old, he's not contemplating retirement. But we needed him this season. It wasn't just because he's really good. We had to play him because of injuries, and he really stepped up in that time. Massive stock rising.
It's this simple. No matter how talented you are or excited people are about you at youth level, until you step on the pitch with men and play at men's football, you're just an exciting talent. Max Dowman, very exciting. Until he steps on the pitch and plays men's football at the top level, he's just an exciting young player. What makes this such a monumental stock rising is Ethan Nwaneri went from a hyped-up youth player to a player who showed he could demonstrate elite capability at men's senior football level. And that proves that there is something there. And until you do that, you haven't proven anything, right? Because the level is not a small step, it's a cavern. He made it look like a small step. Not a chasm. Not a cavern, a chasm. You get the idea. So for me, it's a huge stock rising, and maybe a reminder to us, too, to remember what being 17 and 18 in football terms is, because yes, I get what Miles Lewis-Skelly did, and yes, I get what Lamine Yamal is doing, but if this guy is great for us in 2 years, he's still on time. Or early. You got players winning Young Player of the Season at 23. This guy's 18. So, yeah, he made that leap, Clive. He made the leap from youth football to men's football and showed that it can translate. And for me, that once you do that, you stop just being a hyped-up young player and you start becoming a very exciting talent for Arsenal.
Yeah, and he's 18, but he's a young 18. And I think what's going to unlock him is not what's in his feet, it's what's in his head, his emotional development. And I think once he says, yeah, mate, this is me now, then they're all in trouble. Because he can take the ball as ever you like it, beat people, and he can shoot and he can score. Last time I looked, coaches like that, where you can shoot and score out of nowhere, and the game has just changed, right? So his introduction has been nice. People want to see more of him. I'm totally not with that. Just allow him to grow, develop physically and emotionally. And then when he turns up into our team, there will be no stopping him. And other people will have the problem. So yeah, just a fantastic young player. Just got to be patient and allow him a chance to grow up. You know? So trust me, when I was 18, I weren't doing what he's doing, mate. And dealing with it, it's just incredible what he's doing and what they have to do today to cope at this level. So we get a chance to watch him in the under-21s very shortly in the Euros. So another reason why he could have been kept out, knowing he's going to have a busy summer, you know, where he's going to be a player that's going to play. So we get a chance to watch him and see how he does at that level. It's going to be interesting.
Okay, let's speed things along a little bit here. We're almost towards the end, but for me, this one is probably going to be a little bit controversial. So controversial that Clive's dog already hates it. Already furious with me. And that is Bukayo Saka. And I'm going to give Bukayo Saka a stock rising. And I think people would say that's insane. How can you give Bukayo Saka a stock rising for this season where he got injured, he played so little? But it's this simple for me. After last season, it was clear Bukayo Saka was one of, if not our best players. But I still think I had questions. Is Bukayo Saka, for all of his all-around quality, that sort of elite game-breaking attacker that can be in the Mohamed Salah class? Can he get to that level? And this season, before that injury, Bukayo Saka was becoming a devastating attacking force that cannot be stopped. And let's look at the underlyings a little bit. His shots are up, now into the sort of 3.5, 3.6 per 90 super elite level. His dribbles and dribble success are up. His expected assists massively up. Had more assists this season than last season, right? And, you know, the goals will come because the number of shots he's taking and the dribbles he's completing. If he stays fit, he's going to get those goals. And he didn't have the penalty goals this season that he had last season. But I think what you are seeing, and he ruined Nuno Mendes, by the way, who, you know, is the talk of the town. And he was brilliant, you know, when we saw him late in the season, even though he had rushed back and wasn't fully fit. The reason it's a stock rising for me is Bukayo Saka showed me during his fit period of the season that he is comfortable being the water carrier for our attack, the focal point of defensive setups, and can still devastate despite all of that. His underlying attacking metrics are now really in that elite class, and all that's left are the goals, and I think they'll come. So, Clive, for me, Bukayo Saka has gone to the level now where he's going to get into his prime, and I can Bukayo Saka be a 20-goal, 10-assist player? I saw enough this season to say if he stays fit, I think he can, and that's what I needed to see from him.
Yeah, he was on course for a stellar season till injury struck him, right? So that's it.
Mm-hmm.
Again, he's one of the ones that had the hamstring up, so we're watching to see how they recover, shall we say? Because they're the important players in Kai and Gabriel, for example. So let's see how they go. But yeah, he has gone up. I think we all suddenly realised that we all knew he was the man, but he is the man. And we didn't cope so well without him. We found a solution when Ødegaard was out. It may not have been optimal, but we found a way to play. You know, and we were competing. When he went out at Palace, mate, that was a sad day. We all knew trouble in the hills. And so, yeah, he's irreplaceable, and he's going to be paid accordingly when he signs his new contract. That tells you everything you need to know. I do find his tactical evolution interesting. He started to roam a little bit more.
Yeah.
and started to pop up in different areas. And that it's not, it's not just myself, but you guys as well can see the possibility that if we're going to keep giving him the ball with two people waiting to kick his legs off on the halfway line, then that's not the best use of that resource, right? We may have to set him free, and when he's free, then he's trouble because he's so intelligent in his decision making and the actions nearer the goal. He can go both ways, shoot both feet. He's just an incredible player, and I think if we can add to his tactical and responsibility while giving him more areas of the pitch from which to do that from, I think he becomes a completely different player for the opposition. So yes, when you got that Nuno Mendes thing in your mind, the one-on-one stuff that's flashing around Twitter today, it's all from the same position, and in the slot, in his slot. Can we get him elsewhere and change it again? So, top man. I'm glad you said that, actually. I agree with you 100%. Stock rising.
Yeah. And Tim, look, there are people that are going to say it can't be stock rising because he was already one of the best players in the league, one of the best players in the world, and he didn't play a full season. And for that reason, how can you say it rose? Again, I want to just be clear. As great as he was the season before last, I think I still wanted to see that he could really be that superstar tier of output as an attacker. And whether you look at underlying metrics or just performance, I think he was showing that he's got that now, which is really exciting for us. So what do you have for him?
Yeah, I was going to go Stockhold, but I think you've convinced me, Elliot. And what it made me think was he scored in the Bernabeu. And it's easy to forget because we didn't win the game, but he scored at PSG as well. They're all big games. Those are the biggest games, and not just for Arsenal. Those are the games everyone everyone all around the world are watching, and he scored in both of them. And in the Bernabeu, when he probably was certainly not match fit, had a bit of a whoopsie moment with the penalty, but when it came down to it, was happy to try and chip Courtois again and did it. That's, I think people much younger than all of us, not just me, would say those are the I am him moments. And yeah, scored in the Champions League quarterfinal last season. He's gone one better this season, quarterfinal, semi-final, big moments, big players. So yeah, I'm happy to. And I guess if you wanted to have the kind of subsidiary look at what we look like without him type thing, that kind of raises his I think we all knew already, but that confirms it, doesn't it?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, this is an easy one, you guys. Anybody have anything to say about Raheem Sterling? He's a stock falling for all three of us. Tim, do you want to say anything about him?
I'd rather not, to be honest. I tell you what, if Thiago Sterling, if in 8-9 years' time we're giving Thiago Sterling a stock rising, then I'll revisit. But until that point, stock through the bloody floor, and my expectations were not high. Sorry, mate.
If anyone's wondering what Tim's talking about, by the way, Raheem Sterling's son signed for the Arsenal Academy. So there you go. Maybe that is his stock rising. Clive, you have anything to say about Raheem Sterling whatsoever?
Sorry, can I add just one thing on that?
Yes.
Just because it's a comment. I do think it was interesting in his kind of not very emotional goodbye post. He posted pictures with Lewis-Skelly and Nwaneri. I did speculate earlier in the season that maybe he's a really good guy for those guys to be able to talk to. Obviously, I have no insight on how much he did that, whether he was of any use. I thought it was very interesting and very, when I say pointed, I don't mean that in a cynical way. I thought it was really interesting that whoever does his social media chose those images. I mean, there wasn't a big reel of highlights to go from, but I did feel that there was a bit of a point there. And regardless of whether he sought those players out, definitely a good guy for them to talk to. So, still stock falling though.
Yeah. Clive?
Yeah, I'm sad, really disappointed that he's fallen so far. Right, it happens. And again, it's a lesson for us with Bukayo Saka, who's also started quite young, and we don't want him burnt out when he's 29 years of age, right? So it is a lesson. It's a shame because I really admire him, what he's done for England, what he's done in his career, and the medals that he's won. He's a major player for Man City. He's won 4 Premier Leagues. Been in all their big games, and he started all of them. So and he carried England for a Euros where he was the best player. So. And we forget that, and then I end up watching him play one of the later games this season, and there were people giggling and laughing behind me, and I don't like that. It's a real shame, but he's part of elite sport. He's not about to go and sell the big issue at any moment in time. He's earning good money at Chelsea, and I hope he finds the next phase of his career, where he can find a standard and a level of football he can thrive in, because the Premier League is a little bit tough for him at the moment.
Yeah, look, he had 8 goals and 4 assists in 2,000 minutes for Chelsea the season before we signed him. He was 29 when we signed him. If he had given us 8 goals and 4 assists in 2,000 minutes of Premier League action, that would have been very, very handy. I don't think it was the worst emergency move to make on deadline day. And I think if you just said, we'll just get the same thing from him again, please, in a better team, 8 goals, 4 assists, 2,000 minutes, we'd all be sitting here saying, riotous success of a move we had to make.
Give him Nwaneri's stats.
Yeah,
the season,
you'd feel okay. Unfortunately, it was 0 goals. So it is what it is. Kai Havertz, I'll take this one to start. I'm going to say a stock hold for Kai Havertz. I don't know why, but I feel like Kai Havertz's evaluation among Arsenal fans has gone down basically for no reason in a season where he played so little. But guys, he had 9 goals in 1,800 minutes and ended the season as our league leader in goals. 9 goals and 3 assists for Kai Havertz. 0.46 XG per 90, actually better than he had the season before. 2.5 shots per 90. Like, he was doing the things you want, and I know people aren't happy with his finishing. He had 9.5 expected goals and 9 goals. He had some high-profile misses, but he only had 13 the season before, and we loved him. 13 and 7 because we were winning. I think Kai Havertz is a hugely valuable player to us and a very, very good player who I think has gotten lower ranked in our estimation simply by virtue of us not having the striker we wanted and because of the injury crisis. But it's a clear stock hold for me, Tim, because when he played, I still think he's the same Kai Havertz who can be extremely influential and important for us. He does so many good things. Is he the superstar striker? No, but he's very good. It's a stock hold for me.
I've got him as a stock rising.
Even better. Okay.
Yeah. I'll tell you why stock rising. First of all, I think he proved again, very capable striker. Level didn't enormously drop when Saka was out. I think he's one of the few attackers I'd say that about. Actually, I think everyone suffered to some degree. I think he maybe suffered the least. But the reason I just edge into stock rising is because I think he was even more important when Ødegaard was out, and we asked him to play another, not completely different, but another quite different role. And I think he did it very, very commendably. I think it's clear. I talk about like totem pole players in the team. Like, he's very close to that, isn't he? Almost literally at times, but like he's very, very close. If we nail the striker signing, then maybe not. But hugely important player. And listen, some of it is just because we didn't have another striker without Gabriel Jesus, but. Look, I think it's a clear stock rising to me, and I think the other reason is because I feel okay about the striker signing maybe being like not a development signing, but if we got Sesko, like okay, maybe you need a couple of months. I'm confident enough in Havertz to say fine, stock rising for me.
Yeah, Clive.
Yeah, I'll go with that. I'll go with you. They didn't worry me on this one. I really rate the player.
I'll put you down for falling.
Yeah, I really rate the player. I think he's again somebody that wants to improve, right? And his physical transformation that we're seeing in front of our eyes is so interesting to see what he does next year. When I watch games of football with him playing, he just seems to know where to be to control the momentum of the game. And I think the introduction of him and Declan Rice sort of took us up those points, and we really jumped on the back of those two. If you want to critique Arteta, it probably took him too long to find him at centre forward in that first season, and that introduction, was indifferent, and he suffered with that. And I remember speaking to you, Elliot, on the way out of the Community Shield when we played against Man City, and I was so excited I could not stop. I thought I'd seen it, I'd seen the balance, I'd seen everything I wanted to see. This is incredible, we're going to win everything. And then we spent 2-3 months trying to fit him into midfield, which he did okay in, and it worked on certain occasions when Jesus was they were on the piston with each other, but it was too long. And then once we found him there, then we're fine. So a very important player for us, and let's see how we go with him. There's another one with a big year ahead, couple of years to settle, big year ahead. What you got? It's time to win, right?
Yeah.
Time to win.
Yeah. All right, let's hit Gabriel Jesus. I'm going to give him a stock falling purely just because his body can't hold up. And I feel for him. The funny thing is, it's easy to forget. He had started to come into the team a bit this season, right? He had that hat trick in the League Cup quarterfinals against Palace. Then he plays against Palace again that weekend. And in a 5-1 victory away to Palace, he had 2 goals again. He had a goal against Brentford in an away victory, at a time when we really needed to turn up the heat and get going. And then injury strikes and he's lost to us. And it is a shame. I think he is a player who is not properly rated for his quality. I get that he misses big chances and that's frustrating, but I can't argue with the availability issue. And it's a stock falling for me only because of his inability to stay fit. Tim, I don't think we're going to see Gabriel Jesus be a relevant player for Arsenal moving forward. And I feel for him, this move was supposed to be his big move to show he's the guy. He arrived, showed he was the guy, got injured in a mid-season World Cup during a season where I think we could have won the title and maybe would have without that mid-season World Cup. And he has been just kind of slated for not being fit, essentially, since then and not being able to get back to his physical best. But I don't expect to see that happen anytime soon.
No, it's a stock falling for those reasons. And I'm pretty gutted for him as well. And it just shows sometimes sometimes your career's not in your hands. Sometimes it's a bit like life. Sometimes everyone goes on a path in their career and in life, and sometimes you just get the shit sandwich. And it looks like Gabriel Jesus has got that because he was already having issues with his knee. He's had another one. I think it's very clear what's going to happen for him at Arsenal. The contract's probably going to run down. At this stage, I am past thinking about what he might do for Arsenal, and my mind's more, because I've always had a fondness for the player as well, my mind's more on the player, and I hope he can come back to some kind of level, and that this isn't like a denouement on his career. I think it's a denouement on his Arsenal career, unfortunately. I hope it's not a denouement on his entire career, and that he can go somewhere else and show what he's capable of, because in those months after he signed, such an unbelievable level raiser for Arsenal, and I think we still miss it. I think we still miss some of that chaos and that movement that he brings. But unfortunately, it looks like it's not going to happen anymore, which is extremely sad for him and really sad for us, because like you said, he was actually picking up some form, and in a world where Havertz's hamstring goes and Jesus' knee doesn't, he gets a run to the end of the season, and maybe that picks his career back up again. But his body fails him. And how does his body fail him? Because he was putting his body on the line for the team, running back to make a tackle, and I feel really sorry for him.
Clive, anything to add?
That's really well said, Tim. I think sliding doors moments, right? So we talk about the manager, and everyone keeps saying, Arsenal spent 3 years, need to get a striker. Well, this guy was the striker that we bought and invested in. And this is a sliding doors moment. We went for him. The manager knew him. He was going to give him a lift in his career by making him a central piece of the team, one of the captains of the team. He gave him everything, and he wasn't able to stay healthy. And then we get criticised for not having the nines, where the manager has invested in him, gambled on him being available. We get him available, and then he breaks down again. And injury is injury, right? No one wants to get injured like that, But it's sliding doors moment. And when there was a guy up at Newcastle that we could have gone for, but we weren't sure about, we went for the guy that we knew within the league. That makes a lot of sense. Comes in, changes our lives, and then the guy at Newcastle now is looking pretty good. And that's just a sliding doors moment. They're right there. And none of us would have said anything. When he signed, we were all happy. And we were watching some of the best football we'd seen for years, and he was central to that. So it's a sad thing, but it's a moment that has cost us a few things, if I'm honest with you. And, but hey, it's a sad one. Let's see where he ends up next. That's just one to watch, right?
Really good points there, Clive. Well said. All right, now we're going to get to one that might be a little divisive, and it's Gabriel Martinelli. Guys, I'm going to go with my biggest stock falling of the podcast. First of all, I think you can only fall far if you're very high, and as everybody knows, I was very, very high on this player. But we have to evaluate the player for what he is now. £180,000 per week Arsenal star. A player we committed to at a level that says you are a foundational piece of the attack that is going to win things. And he did not play at that level this season. He had one of his worst statistical seasons for Arsenal from an underlying metric standpoint. In 2,300 minutes, he scored 8 goals. He had 4 assists. His expected goals went down. His expected assist plunged to the lowest level they have been since he's been at Arsenal. His dribbles per 90 went down to a level now that has him in the bottom 50 percentile of that stat. His shots per 90 are now down. He used to be a shot monster. He now does not get the shots. His touches per 90, the lowest of his Arsenal career. His passes per 90, the lowest of his Arsenal career, or, roughly since he was like 19. His pass percentage from the high 70s to the low 70s. And I accept that some of this has to be related to the fact that we simply did not have access to the left side of our attack, that we were very right-sided, and that balance wasn't there. So I accept that, and I acknowledge that. But I do think that there are times when it is just the case that the great players influence games and get involved, and I think every aspect of Gabriel Martinelli's game, if you want to be kind, has stagnated from the player he was. And I also want to be clear about the stock falling. I still think Gabriel Martinelli is one of the most talented left-wing players in the Premier League and could be great for us. But if you're going to look at this season and how he played and what he contributed, unless you don't rate him, it has to be a monumental stock falling. And Tim, again, I think the reason I get worked up about it is it's a player who I believe in so much from a raw talent standpoint, and who I thought could probably, and I'll say this on an open mic, there was a time when I thought, at least as a goal scorer, his ceiling might be higher than a Bukayo Saka, who looked like the all-around player who could do everything. But Martinelli seemed like this guy who had a knack for getting goals, and I don't know where I am with that now. And on £180,000 per week and heading into 24, 25-year-old time period, 24 when you have to be hitting your prime, that's not a good time to have your stats bottoming out for your Arsenal career. So I accept that there are structural issues about how we accessing the left-hand side, but I think it's a bit of excuse making, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think on that, when that's a problem for 2 seasons, you're the problem at that stage. Do you know what I mean?
It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me.
Yeah. Am I the arsehole? No, he's not an arsehole. I'm going to go stock hold, but I'm going to go stock hold from the beginning of the season. This time last year, I'd have given him stock falling, and I'm giving him a stock hold on stock falling, if that makes sense.
I get it.
So,
yeah.
like a stock hold. If you'd have asked me in August about giving Martinelli a stock hold, I'd have said, that's not a fantastic season. I'm not going to add a lot more because I've probably got more to say about the other attacker, but stock hold. But I don't disagree with you at all.
Yeah, I will add, by the way, that Leandro Trossard, the other guy who plays off the left, also saw some of his stats start to bottom out. Now, that could be age-related, but importantly, his touches stayed reasonably consistent. So, he was able to get on the ball. Now he plays a little more interior than Martinelli does, so it could be his role. I don't know. I mean, I guess, Clive, I feel bad because I really, really believe there is a special talent in this player. But when, I hate to make it about wage, but it's the point that when the club commits to you as a pillar of the project, you have to start to be evaluated as something different than a bright young talent. And that's just the reality of big club football,
Yeah, he lacks a bit of quality when it comes to finishing, and he goes from being super composed to what are you doing? And I think sometimes he goes to his weak foot too much. What are you running into dark alleys for to cross it on your weak foot? Sometimes it's worse, but you know what? Take responsibility, come inside and use your right foot and shoot. Take more goal scoring responsibility, take some accountability, arrive at that second 6-yard box, get to a penalty spot like Nico Williams showed in the week. Just get there, see what happens. And he can do it, and he has done it. I think maybe as our game has changed and we've moved Declan Rice a bit further forward and we've become more territorially dominant, we're not playing through teams anymore. So we're not having those mini transitions. So his game has become, I'm getting the ball high, I've got 2 or 3 people and I've got a block around me. And he's in the right part of the pitch, but it's the right part of the pitch that needs a little bit of ingenuity, where he's a runner. And the space for running is taken away, you know. My boy says to me he'd be a great bench player, you know, because he'll come on late in games and can take people, you know. Think about the goal he scored at Sevilla when he broke through and Jesus done the Cruyff turn and he's in. Think about the goals. Think about the moments when he really came into our minds. The breakaway goal, you know, at Chelsea, for example. The amount of times he's run through teams, particularly in Europe, and got caught, you know, I think it's Sport in one game. He's got that ability to travel big distances, and we don't have those big distances at the moment. So his game has become a small space game, and that's not really his game. So he has to adapt. He started to show some sparks towards the end of the season, some out-to-in runs. The goal of Madrid, you know, out-to-in. Again, transition, wasn't it? Transition game where the game state was favoured him. So, yeah, interesting one for him. Can he develop? I said it before, Elliot, have we seen all of his moves? And sometimes, if someone was to knock your door and say 55 million quid, what would you do? You know, and back to that renewal.
That's what we plan to do with it, right? If you said the only way we get Rodrigo is sell Martinelli, I'm doing some soul searching.
Well,
you know?
we want to add to these numbers, don't we? Right. So we're not about.
Of course. Yeah.
So if we lose Martinelli, we got to buy 2, right? So we can improve the wide cover. So, but if that was to happen, that's a point where you say, well, actually, in wide areas, in a different team, in a different structure. I mean, I'll just mention this name, but the way Nottingham Forest play, for example, I'm not saying you should go to Forest, but they're the best example I can think of in the Premier League of being a transition team, a counter-attacking team. He would absolutely rip it, you know, completely rip it. And so the different environments can suit you. But another thing I do like about him, I know he's a stock falling for us, but I mean, every time the way we play, his responsibility off the ball is incredible defensively. He's just brilliant against the very, very best, you know, and he's really fit and works really, really hard. I've got a lot of time for him. I really like him. But he's one of the people, we can't look at our goal scoring and our chance creation and say that all the guys at top end of the pitch should be stock risings. That can't happen, right? So he's one that's falling.
Okay. Last two, here we go. I think we can be quick on this one. Tim, Leo Trossard.
Yeah, you say be quick on this. No. Everyone tap the mug. I wrote my column for this week, which is going out on Thursday, about him. And it really caused me to rethink, because I think a few days ago I'd have said stock falling. I'm going to say stock hold, and maybe even close to stock rising. And here's why.
Interesting.
Because we asked him to do something completely different. So the end of last season, what does he do? Everyone's there. Saka's there. Havertz is there. All the build-up guys are there. All the guys who confuse the centre-halves are there. So what does he do? He does his Freddie Ljungberg thing, gets on the end of stuff. First time finish off of both feet. Brilliant. Scored loads of goals. Amazing. This season, all the build-up guys either weren't there, or like Ødegaard wasn't playing very well or was injured. So we asked him to do something very different. If you look at his numbers, his goal contributions are actually up on last season, because in the Premier League he had 1 assist last season. That went up to 7 this year. So we asked him to do a much more creative role. We asked him to get involved in areas where we didn't have to ask him to get involved before, where we were, you know, think of the goal against Porto, for example, like finisher, run onto stuff. We asked him to be like a bit of a proper winger. He played on the right. He played false 9. He played on the left. He played nearly every single game this season. And I think, and I'm not going to sit here and tell you he did that to an absolutely world-class level. I think this is a player, and I'm still undecided on the whole contract, do we sell thing. I think we've been very lucky to have this player this season. I don't think there are many players in the world who can go from playing in a team like Arsenal and go and be the goal scorer, and then a few months later completely flip that and go and be the creator, and to actually do it. Neither of them at an absolutely world-class level, but to do both of them at a really good level, I think is a really unique footballer that we've been really, really lucky to have. We've had shit luck all season, but we've been, I say fortunate, we deserve that luck with all the other bad luck, but we've been fortunate to have a player like that who we can go and ask to do something completely different. And when Ødegaard was out, we asked him to do something completely different again. I think we've been really fortunate to have a player like that in the squad. Whatever happens to him from here on in, and like I said, I'm undecided, we'll miss him if he goes. So I'm going to say stock hold, but going towards a stock rising for the sake of conversation.
Yeah, I'll say a stock hold. And Clive, I think it's this simple. I think part of the reason he's less appreciated is because Martinelli had a weak season. If Martinelli had 18 goals and 5 assists, and then you got 8 goals and 7 assists from Leo, you'd say, wow, what a great backup winger to have the luxury of being able to bring on. The problem is he played 2,500 minutes because the starter was both injured and then not effective. So he wound up having to play more than you'd like that role to play. And I think he's not quite the level that we want to be starting for us, 2,500 minutes a season, but he's definitely a level that would have been fine like the season before when he played 1,500 minutes. So I think he was caught by the fact that his role increased beyond where we'd probably want it to be. I have it as a stock hold for that reason, which is, it's not that he was poor, is that he played more than I want our backup left winger to play, and he played at sort of reasonable backup left winger quality, if that makes sense.
Yeah, Tim spoke really well there. I think he made 56 appearances this year, which is the most of any other player. Right?
Yeah.
So when someone does that, he can't be he could easily be a stock rising, because the things that have happened to Jesus and Havertz and Ødegaard and Saka, he's the one that's had to carry that weight. Even Martinelli was down at one period. So he's had to carry that weight. If we're picking our first 11s, then we say, well, I'm not sure if he's quite it, etc. But again, when he first came into the group, he scored goals. He scored goals in the second season. Some of his goals are critical goals, first goals, winning goals. Not your 5th goal in the 5-0. Do you know what I mean? He's really important. But he sort of epitomises almost like our offensive flaw. And we all want to get better, so we look around and think, which one's going to go? It's going to be Trossard, But we should also recognise what he's done, right? How many points did his goals gather as high? I think we'd be quite surprised, and I think it's really important. I don't want to move on as much for him. If someone came in with a £20 million offer for him, I'd probably say, that's not enough. You might as well keep him. He's more important to us, I think he has variation to his game where I don't think we've seen all of him yet. I think he's very smart, intelligent, and he's quite creative in his movements. Whereas I think Martinelli's got a bit more. I'm a bit more stressed about that one. So I wonder if we have seen all the moves from him. So yeah, I'll go with a stock. I can even go with stock rising. Doesn't worry me.
Really? All right.
Yeah.
Now I got to retype head hold.
He convinced me.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, there you go. He's the barrister here.
Yeah.
All right. Last one is Mikel Arteta, and then we're going to do the same thing, but for all of the big 4 clubs, big 6 clubs. I mean, so I don't know. You guys have anything planned tonight? All right. This is getting ridiculously long, and I apologize for that. But you know what? Long podcasts are apparently, they say, in vogue right now. All right. Mikel Arteta. And guys, I want to do it this way. I want to set aside transfers. We don't totally, does he decide them? Does he not? Was it Edu? Was it Ato in January? Did Mikel go? I'm going to only do the ranking as how he coached the team he had, because I don't know enough to say it the other way. I think last summer was a mistake. I think January was a mistake. Okay. I'm on record, but I think Mikel gets a skyrocketing stock rising as a coach. I have no other way to analyze this. Finding Miles Lewis-Skelly and having the confidence to play him in the key moments, not defaulting to some senior player out of position, but trusting the young player and being rewarded for that. Finding the way to integrate Ethan Nwaneri, but also when to take him out of the firing line when maybe it was getting to be too much. Managing his way through injuries, finding Mikel Merino at center forward, relying on the players that he had in positions. Kiwior at center back when he could have tried to do other weird, wacky things and, getting through that Real Madrid tie with that. I think the role he gave Declan Rice at 8, something people weren't sure, is that the right way to go? I think he really flourished there. In every respect, would Mikel look like a better coach if Martin Ødegaard delivered at the level? Yeah, I mean, that's how football works, right? You still need players to put away chances. You still need players to finish. If Gabriel Martinelli played his best season ever, would Mikel look like a better coach? But for me, finishing second despite the injury issues, making it to the semifinal of the Champions League despite those issues, short on talent in certain places, finding Miles Lewis-Skelly, giving Ethan his introduction to the big bright world of football, but not overdoing it. I think he got a lot of things right this season. If you want to put more weight on transfers, I get it. I don't know exactly how to evaluate that. And from a domestic cup standpoint, honestly, my biggest issue with the domestic cups, we didn't finish our chances. Against United, for example, we absolutely pummeled the life out of them and missed. That's the story of the season in some game. Bukayo Saka, open goal in Paris. Those are things a coach can't fix. That's just football, the vagaries of football. So if you're frustrated with the cup exits, I get it. I don't know what he would have done differently. For me, I just see a manager who faced immense challenges, both with red cards and injuries, and managed his way through it to what I regard as a totally acceptable, if not impressive, outcome. Obviously, if he gets the players he needs and we stay fit next season, it'll be easier to judge. But under the circumstances, Clive, I have him as a huge stock rising.
From a coaching perspective, he's had to coach his backside off with the issues that he's had, and think about the issues that we don't even know about from an injury perspective that people have had to do, and people coming off, people being subbed in games, and we know they weren't right coming off the pitch, So he's coached himself to within an inch of his life, and this is why this summer is so important, because that can't continue. When January came along, he made his points quite clear. We made a club decision to hold fire. So here we are now. Let's see what happens. And the wagons are circling around him, because we have made a statistical step sideways. And in some ways, there's some really high moments, but we have to call it what it is. We haven't looked as bright, and there are reasons for it. No one's interested. So now we have to respond. And that response is very important. He's at the forefront of that. I think there's some things to improve around him, shall we say. I think people are after him, and I sometimes think we have to do we don't have to do anything. I just think people are after him, and my natural sense is I'm an Arsenal man, right? So if people come for the Arsenal, I want to defend it, right? So and I think we have to defend him. We have to defend him wherever we can, while knowing we want to get better. We want to see those things happen. We want to see a bit more variation. We want to see a bit more fluidity. We want to see a bit more cohesion, directness. Because we're able to say that because we watch the team every single week, and we know what we can do. But we also got to remember that we have been completely hamstrung, literally, this season. So we've not been able to see the best of us. When the best of us was there, it was top level. It was as high as we've ever had. The Madrid games, the PSG away game, mate, the first part of that game, that stays with me massively. Sporting Lisbon, massive game, So some levels are really, really high. Excuse me. So it's in there. But I can't help when I'm judging Mikel Arteta. We all know the issues and we are sympathetic towards them. But I can't help but think about the next day rather than yesterday. It's all about what happens next. It really is. So that's where I am.
I think that's really well put, Clive, because managers rightfully are judged on accomplishments, and those accomplishments are trophies. Analysis, I think, has to extend beyond that. And, this gets back to that stupid thing. Did Ange have a better season than Mikel Arteta? No, Ange didn't have a better season than Mikel Arteta. And he's not a better coach than Mikel Arteta. And if you want to think of it that way, I can't tell you how to look at football, but I just think it's incredibly reductive. But yeah, it was a sideways step. We know the reasons why. I think as a coach, he did well. I want to see him with all of his weapons at his disposal next season. And if it doesn't go the way we hope, then it will be a clearer path towards analysis. But I can only analyze the blurry image we were given this season, Tim.
Yeah, completely endorse everything about Mikel Arteta, the coach. Happy with the stock rising. I still say you can't say convinced because stuff can happen. I'm really confident Arsenal will win the league title with Mikel Arteta as manager. I guess Mikel Arteta, the manager, I'd have to give a stock hold. I think, of course, there are extenuating circumstances. He was very clear about what he wanted. It's certainly in January, he was very clear about what he wanted. The summer, I still come back to that question, was the guts of 80 million on Merino and Calafiori what we really needed to do last summer? I don't know how much I can separate that from him. Obviously, there's the Edu thing as well. So if I'm talking about Mikel Arteta, the manager, I have to acknowledge and understand that the guy who's supposed to really, really help him with that wasn't there. So we asked him to do more on that side. I can't rightfully go with a stock rising on this, I don't think, other than Mikel Arteta, the coach. Also, I think we have to reflect on the injuries as well and say, when 4 guys have hamstring surgery, is your resource management where it should be? He said a lot, we have a very, very small squad. I'm not that sure about that. Maybe it's slightly small. I don't endorse like how much he emphasises that point in particular. So yeah, I still think there are maybe some questions about resource management there, which prevent me from going into the stock rising, but certainly a stock hold. And I certainly think as a coach, he's absolutely elite.
Yeah, I think that's correct. And I think that's a good place to leave it. I'm inclined to say let's do 10 or 15 more players that were sort of in the reserves and stuff, but at the 2 hour and 10 minute mark, it feels like we should knock it on the head. I should have worn a diaper to record this because I am literally going to piss my pants in about 10 seconds. Yeah. So I think we leave it there. There'll be a transfer daily later as news of Gyökeres to United is sort of floating out there and people are losing their minds. Be safe out there. It's a tough time. Yeah. Tim's got the bottle out ready to go. Let's leave it there. Tim, thank you for going through this ridiculous exercise.
No, that's fine. I was indicating that's almost an entire bottle of water.
Yeah, well,
I've drunk during this.
Okay, plus the coffee. Clive, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, look, the only other time we go this long is our preseason previews, and that's 2 months away, thank God. Okay, we will try not to do this again to your poor ears. We love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer 1-0.